Good evening. I'd like to call the regular Town Council meeting of Monday, April 21st, 2025 to order. And if you are able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councillor Buganski. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Balboni. Councillor Carey.
Present.
Mayor Delnicki.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
Present.
Councillor King.
Here.
Councillor Fitzgerald. Here. Councillor Pendleton.
Present.
Okay, moving on to item 4, I have a few mayor's remarks. I had the opportunity to attend the 52nd annual Easter egg hunt sponsored by Homestead Heating and Cooling on Friday, April 18th. I would like to thank the South Windsor Parks and Recreation staff for organizing such a fantastic event. Their hard work and dedication ensured the event's success, and it was wonderful to see a great turnout from our community. Again, thank you to the staff of the Parks and Recreation. Today, April 21st, marks the beginning of National Work Zone Awareness Week, which runs through April 25th. This annual spring campaign coincides with the start of construction season, reminding all drivers to prioritize safety while navigating the highway work zones. Work zones are temporary, but actions behind the wheel can have lasting consequences. The theme for 2025, respect the zone so we all go home or get home, highlights the importance of mindful driving for everyone's safety. This week is also on April 21st through the 25th. We celebrate Administrative Professionals Week with April 23rd marking Administrative Professionals Day. The administrative professionals are the unsung heroes who ensure everything runs seamlessly. Today, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to each of you for your dedication, hard work, and invaluable contributions. Thank you for all you do, and keep us moving forward. And lastly, on May 4th, the Guru Vandana Teacher Appreciation Event, organized by the Hindu Swayamsevak Sangh, HSSA USA, will take place at Pleasant Valley School at 4:30. This special celebration will bring together teachers from South Windsor's elementary, middle, and high schools to honor the tremendous role they play in shaping the lives of our children. In the Hindu tradition, Guru Vandana, meaning salutations to the teacher, is a heartfelt occasion to express gratitude and respect for our gurus, those who guide, inspire, help us grow. In Hinduism, the guru is often equated with the divine figures like Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the protector, and Shiva, the transformer, in symbolizing their pivotal role in dispelling ignorance and illuminating the path to knowledge. Guru Vandana events typically involve students honoring their teachers through heartfelt gestures such as presenting mementos or expressing gratitude through speeches and performances. The tradition emphasizes the importance of the guru-disciple relationship known as Guru Shishya Para, which is a cornerstone of Hindu philosophy. It serves as a reminder of the values of respect, gratitude, and lifelong learning. And that's all I have. And moving on to item 5, Councillor Pendleton.
Adoption of the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion, changes, additions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item 6, communications and reports from the town manager, Mr. Maniscalco.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In terms of my report to all of you, first of all, the town hall has received a few calls from residents related to communications that residents have received requesting money for their deed to their property. The town does not mail letters or make phone calls requesting money for deeds. In the event you do get some type of communication like this, please do not hesitate to verify its legitimacy by calling the town hall at 860-644-2511 or the police department at 860-644-2551. This is, from everything we've been able to put together, a scam. In term with spring in full swing, we're starting to see stronger thunderstorms in the area. I wanted to take the opportunity to remind the public that if you do lose power, to call Eversource, the Eversource outage number at 800-286-2000 to report those outages. I would remind everybody that calling the town hall to report an outage doesn't really help very much. You need to call Eversource. Additionally, for preparation resources and to know what to do in the event of a natural disaster, residents can go to the www.ready.gov website. Town departments have equipment prepped and are ready to respond to street closures and traffic light outages. In the event of a major storm, please avoid travel if possible. If you do need to travel, please be aware of and watch for downed power lines and debris on the roads. As everybody will remember, the council voted, I believe it is our last meeting or the meeting before, to change the depreciation of motor vehicles for the grand list, which meant we had to come up with a new grand list to submit to OPM. So the new motor vehicle depreciation grand list numbers were signed on April 15th, 2025. The new total net grand list is $3,820,059,545, which represents a 0.757% increase over the 2023 net grand list. And lastly, as I mentioned during my budget request on April 7th, 2025, I'm requesting an additional $142,000 in the salary contingency, and I'm also proposing some savings to offset the request. I've asked the Capital Projects Committee to schedule a meeting to close out completed projects that have a remaining balance. I'm suggesting that the remaining funds in the amount of $170 be applied to this coming year's capital budget, which would allow for a $170,000 reduction to the overall budget. The Capital Projects Committee was scheduled to meet on April 16th. Unfortunately, that meeting was canceled due to a lack of quorum, and I believe they have a new meeting scheduled for April 23rd. And with that being said, I would be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for the town manager? Seeing none, I think you're off the hook.
Thank you.
And next we have updating regarding the legislative changes affecting municipalities. We have Representative Tom Delnicki and State Senator Sawood Anwar. So you two can fight it out who goes first.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and honorable members of the Town Council. I think what we'll do is I'll speak a little bit and then you can speak and then we'll have the questions. If you have difficult questions, I will have him answer, especially if it's coming from you, Madam Mayor. But we'll go ahead and get started. Before we even talk about the current budget, and because budget is a very important part of the conversation we should have, let's talk about where we are today in the 2025 fiscal year that's going to end in June from the state's perspective. This was a budget that we had worked on in the last 2024 cycle that resulted in about over $600 million of tax break to our citizens in the state of Connecticut. That is the highest tax break in the last 30 years or so that the people in our state were able to get. We also anticipate by the end of June of 2025, we will have about $5.95 billion in our rainy day fund, which is the highest that it has ever been, and that is about 26% of what it is, and then it should be about 18%. So we have been able to increase our rainy day fund significant amounts for the state, and this will be relevant for our conversation as we move forward during the course of our conversation today. And the pension debt, we've been able to pay down our debt by some $8 billion, so as a state. So we are not only paying on time, but we are paying ahead of time, and that ahead of time, just like if we were to have our home payments made early, that saves money for the taxpayers. So the $8 billion that we have already paid during the life of the loan that we have at this time, we will be saving about $18.5 billion for the people of the state of Connecticut. So this is, again, 5+ years of having a surplus in the state. All the rating agencies have recognized that we are doing financially fairly well. So that's where we are for the previous budget, but going forward, There are three things that I think it's worthy to keep in mind if we look at the budget at this time for the state. For the biennial budget, we have 2026 and 2027 budget that we are working on, and I think you are looking at your side of the budget as well in the process. The three things are the ARPA funds are no longer there. And in the last few years, we as a state have been able to receive ARPA funds. The towns have received ARPA funds for a number of different projects. That becomes very helpful. The total dollar amount nationally was $1.2 trillion. And for our towns, for the state of Connecticut, it was $2.8 billion that we had received. This is unprecedented for the people who have served for 25, 30 years. They say they have never seen that kind of support come in that allowed us to invest in a very timely fashion during the pandemic, where there was erosion of the small businesses, large businesses, and there was opportunity to save the businesses, and a number of different components that were affected, including childcare, healthcare, mental health, and the workforce development, and so on. The second big part is the fiscal guardrails we need to keep in mind. The fiscal guardrails have helped our state to be able to get us to the financial capacity that we've been paying down our debt. That's a good thing to be able to do that, and it's important, and that's why we have been able to be successful. But they are also there to help us and start to look at if the fiscal guardrails become roadblocks, because this is going to be a difficult session. I wrote an op-ed back in on December 10th in CT Mirror. It's worthy to look at what I have said about the fiscal guardrails in the current climate and the challenges, because we anticipate the difficulties that we would have during this entire budget period. The third thing I want to talk about is the federal cuts. With the Trump administration, it's been very clear that there is an effort to try and reduce the amount of funding that the federal government is providing to the state of Connecticut, or every state, but I'll focus on the state of Connecticut. What we have seen is, and these are in process of evolution, because every day we get some more information, and that changes our ability to navigate that process. So the recent thing was we had about $150 million cut in the Department of Public Health and the Public Health Fund. What that has done is it has essentially stopped the disease surveillance program that the state of Connecticut has, and it's also stopped the new born screening program that we have for the children, because they are hereditary diseases, childhood diseases that we can actually identify. So that process is being impacted as well. And the childhood immunization has been affected by that as well. I was looking at the numbers for the town of South Windsor. We have been ahead of the curve. We have used significant amount of the funding that has been there, but that cut that has happened is going to affect many children in the state, but not all the children in our town. So there was about $6 to $10 million cut for mental health in the state, which is going to have addiction services and mental health services impacted negatively as well from the federal administration's cuts. The education and child nutrition program is being affected by $14 million some dollars. The K-12 education and about $9 million some dollars from the Department of Education, and there is more that we have been informed that may come down. I do not have the dollar amount because we have not heard about that yet. It can come any day. There's another $10 million that is going to affect our farmers in the town of South Windsor, because we had this program where we were using the farm to school program, where we're using the farmers and fresh food from our communities to be taken and provided as a nutrition for our children in the school. With the Trump administration's cuts, that is going to affect the farmers, but also our children in the process as well. The Head Start program with 5,500 children, the preschoolers in the state of Connecticut, that program is being eliminated because of the federal cuts that have happened. And some 1,200 veterans in the town of South Windsor are going to be affected because of the cuts on the veterans program by the federal government at this time. And the energy assistance program, the LIHEAP program, is also being affected as well, because the people administering that program have been removed from their positions. For the individuals, interestingly, the town of South Windsor has some of the highest number of students studying at University of Connecticut in Storrs, but also a large number of professors, teachers are in our state, are in the town of South Windsor. They are going to be affected because the NIH grants and other research grants are being stopped as well. So, and Yale University too, but we do not have as many people from Yale in our town. The transportation infrastructure, the walk paths, the bike paths plan, that the federal government was supporting is out as well. With respect to the Medicaid, what I have heard is that there's a plan to have a reduction of $800 billion across the country, but we do not know how much of that is going to happen and when that is going to be shared. But that would be a big impact to our citizens in the town of South Windsor, too. In the conversations that I have had with the people in the town about the quality of life issues, I'll just list the things that I've heard, and then you can probably resonate with some of them and perhaps add more. But the list is pretty long, but I wanted to go through it, and I've tried to put them in some organized fashion. I think the calls that we receive and interactions with the community specific to South Windsor is the cost of living. The cost of living has been a big issue that I'm sure each one of you hear as well, and we do too. And the property taxes, the utility cost is a very big issue that is just devastating the community, especially our seniors and essentially everyone. The fixed income community members, the seniors are affected as well. The cost of rent and the poor services for a few of the senior facilities in the town are something we hear about. The cost of healthcare has been high. The cost of medication is affecting our community as well. The cost of early childhood care in our state is a big issue, but also in the town of South Windsor where we are hearing this. I've heard about the local traffic crumbling foundations has remained an issue. It's still an issue, and we're still fielding calls with individuals who are going through crumbling foundation. The truck traffic is something that we still hear about in our towns. We put in a bill to try and help address that as well. And then having some of the growth in industry with close proximity to the residential areas is, again, an area that we actually hear about as well. I think what we are hearing is probably what you're hearing as well. So this list is probably something that you have probably heard from community members as well. There's a concern about too much solar arrays in our region. Again, the social issues where there are people who are feeling that there is not enough acceptance or the bullying issues that are happening. The school crowding is something else that we have heard about because the schools are filled up quite a bit in our town, and also the limited land space that we have for further growth in industry as well, which is something that I know the planning and zoning is looking at. And I think from some of the people we have heard about the 8-30G issue that it's going to be tricky to be able to fulfill the requirements because of our challenge of the schools being absolutely more than full at this point, and some of that is going to have an impact on those areas too. I will quickly jump to one more area, and then I will give opportunity to Representative Delnicki to speak to some of the parts. I think one of the areas that I think it's worthy to talk about is the utility cost. That is a big issue that I think is impacting every single person in the household, every single person who is living in our town or outside the town and the state as well. So I think in order to understand this, we'll have to go a little deeper into the process and trying to look at it and break it down. I'll try to simplify this, and then we'll go into as much depth as you would like to, but in simple form, there's a supply and then there's a distribution. The supply part is about half of your bill on an average, and the distribution is the other part of it. The supply is something that is deregulated, which means that you can actually go and buy on your own from any source that you want to. I will speak a little bit about the supply. The source of the supply for the state of Connecticut, and especially with the area that we are part of, majority of that, about 42% comes from natural gas. And then that's something that's there, and then about 23% comes from nuclear source, which is a cleaner version, and then it's from the Canadian hydro, that's 9% as well. So that's the major sources of the source of utility, the energy that we are getting for electricity. Now, with the Ukraine war, it's no secret, there was a problem with natural gas, and that actually had disrupted the entire natural gas market because part of Europe, the Western Europe, was not able to get the natural gas. That actually had a direct impact on the natural gas futures and an impact in the United States as well. We are not providing it to the Western Europe, but the natural gas all over the world was affected because of the disruption of natural gas coming from Russia to part of Western Europe, and then that had an impact on that. So none of us in this room had anything to do with it, but it was directly having an impact on the natural gas costs as well. The part that the Canadian hydro is something that we have been getting for some time. One of the things that is happening with the tariffs that President Trump has put forward would result from the supply side to have an impact across the state of Connecticut for $100 million extra cost for utilities. That would be something that we have to be aware of. I just wanted to put that on there as well. Now the second part, the delivery part. The delivery part would be divided into three broad categories. One of them is a delivery that is coming from interstate mechanism. So if the delivery is coming from parts of Canada all the way over here, that delivery is going through interstate component when it comes all the way to Connecticut, and that is regulated by the federal government because it's interstate. We have no say over it, but that's 10% of the bill. And that keeps changing up and down depending on the situation. The second part of the bill, which is the distribution in the state of Connecticut and in our towns, that is where Eversource comes in, and that is the part that is overseen by PURA. That's the part that the state regulatory agency has a say on the 30% of our bill. The remaining 10% is the public benefit part. That's 10% of the bill. That is the part that the legislative branch of the government has a say in it. So just to break it down so that when somebody is going to look at the bill, there are so many parts to it, but the part that the state has a say in it is the public benefit part, and that is something that's relevant, and it's part of the increase that we have seen in the recent past. That's why a lot of people are upset at that. The part that is on the delivery over here in the state, that is the PURA, that's regulated by PURA for the Eversource. As we are talking about Eversource, it's worthy to mention that Eversource is a for-profit entity. It is publicly traded. Their executive, the CEO, is paid as the top 10 highest paid CEO in the United States. And the money that the CEO makes is from the utility bills that we are paying as one of the states that they provide service to. Their 2024 profit was $811 million. Their profit in 2022 was $1.4 billion. The profits in 2021 was $1.2 billion, and the profit in 2020 was $1.2 billion. How are they making the profit? They're making the profit because we are paying the bills for them. So yes, while there's so many parts to this puzzle, it's important to note that in this puzzle, there are people who are part of an entity that is doing very well financially. And if you look at some of the towns in our state that have actually not had the utility companies provide the distribution, they do their own distribution, example, Wallingford, they have not seen the increase that we are seeing in other towns are increasing. So I think while I explain to you and take ownership of some of the parts that we can take the ownership for, I think there's a broader strategy that has to be looked at around this topic as well. So what we are doing is, this needs to be looked at comprehensively. What do we address? And the public benefits, if there were a small amount of benefits, maybe there's a way to spread that into the bill, but when significant part of the state is impacted during the pandemic, you cannot spread that. It's not feasible. And that's where we have to have an intervention, and we are working on this bill, and I think Representative Delnicki is going to talk about that too as well. It's Senate Bill 1560. We're trying to see if the Green Bank would be used for having bonding for the public benefits, to be able to take that away and then take that as a policy strategy to be able to address this. So this is the active conversations that we are looking at to address that in a manner where there's an opportunity. And again, also explore procurement opportunities that can be looked at where the cost of procurement can be controlled as well. The transparency around procurement is critical. In 2017, when I was not a part of the legislation, I was actually sitting in one of the chairs, actually Mayor Delnicki's current chair. At that time, the state of Connecticut had made a decision about the Millstone deal. That Millstone deal is part of the cost of the public benefit part. So that's the cost of that is there, and that has been part of the responsibility that was put onto the ratepayers at this time. I do feel that public utilities should not be publicly traded. I've spoken about that publicly multiple times because we are captive audience. We don't have a choice. If you want distribution, either you have your own solar panels and are completely out of the grid, which is very difficult to do, and it's unsafe in some situations. When you're part of the grid, you have to go to a utility company. We have no choice. We are captive in this situation. But that captive is answerable not to the ratepayers, they're answerable to the stockholders. And we are seeing that clearly. So I don't have a say in them giving the highest salary and highest benefits to their CEO. None of us would want their CEO to get the money, the amount that they're making amongst the top 10 in the entire United States. And that's part of the problem. We have to have utility companies be answerable to the ratepayers, and that's not happening. So that's one of the bills, Bill 423, that I proposed, and I'll continue to propose. We're getting more people recognizing that this is the way to approach this is. And we also feel that if municipalities are interested to own their own delivery, they would be able to have much more control of their future. But in order to do that, you cannot just randomly have a majority vote and do that. You need funding and to be able to invest in that, and we need to create a fund to start to look into those options. I'm looking at not next year, but the next many years we'll have to start to think in those terms, because these utility companies, greed is not going anywhere. It's actually increasing. And then having PURA, I wanted to change the PURA makeup as well. I put in a bill, which is actually thankfully maybe moving forward in some respects, of having 5 members of the PURA, but I do feel that lobbyists should not be part of the PURA. Lobbyists for utility companies should not become members or commissioners for PURA. So that's where I have put that out as well at this time. So I can speak forever on all of these bills, but I will stop here because there are other bills, and maybe in the conversations we can add more discussion around them. But I wanted to get to Representative Delnicki, who has a lot to say too, but he's been very kindly waiting. Go ahead, Representative Delnicki.
It's always a pleasure. You always have to be careful with a good senator. If he jumps in front of the microphone first, boy, oh boy. So let's talk about bipartisan cooperation, because something very special occurred last week. You had Senate Democrats and House Republicans coming together to come up with a reasonable solution that can actually do something about these high electric costs. You know, we talk about the public benefit. I'm glad you mentioned the Green Bank. On the Banking Committee, that was something, I'm the ranking member there, that we were very, very assiduous on making sure that we have a strong green bank. They can issue bonds. They can take the public benefit charge. They take the public benefit charge, and right off the bat, you're going to see your electric rates drop by 20, 25% or thereabouts. So that is one piece of the puzzle. The other pieces of the puzzle are more interesting. Allow for electric distribution companies to issue securities when there's storm remediation. Now think about it. Remember, what, 2011, 2012, we had the October snowstorm. Millions and millions and millions of dollars had to be spent to put the system back together. And it hit squarely on the backs of the ratepayers like a sledgehammer. By being able to issue securities to pay for repairing, you can then spread out the cost and take time to repair it and have the money to do it. You know, there's an old saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. If you can actually have securities that you sell, and I'm talking about Eversource, okay, and they can then get the system back up and running without hitting the average ratepayer with a huge burden of cost. The other interesting proposal is time of day metering. Now, I've got to look at that a little bit more, but let's say you're drying your clothes. You use your dryer at night, you get a much lower electric rate. If you use it during the day, it would be a higher rate. That's something that would also be a help to the average person. The establishment of a state energy procurement consortium. Why are we having a 2, 3, 4, 5 dozen different companies that want to sell you electricity? if the state can do it effectively and actually get a good price, the cost of a kilowatt hour of electricity will be lower than what we're paying now. Because I don't know about you guys, but I get a notice in the mail, I get something, an email about, you know, Ted's Electric Company, and they want to sell you electricity. The Electric Rate Stabilization Fund, that is another tool that by building up revenue and having a fund to be stabilizing it, you could then have a better chance of getting a better price. And redefining Class 1 renewable energy sources to include electricity generated, not just solar, not just wind, and wind we're finding out has some real downsides. I don't know if you've seen the whales that are coming up on shore, something that has never happened before in the New England area, okay? But redefining Class 1 renewables, because that's one of the keys there about what we have to utilize for electricity. And nuclear is a Class 1 renewable, or it should be. Other states classify it in that fashion. So bipartisan solutions. And it was a real groundbreaker, and it was a good thing to see. Vinnie Candelora, the minority leader for the House, and Senator Looney, the majority leader for the Senate, Democrat and Republican, together working on a solution that everyone can live with. That's the kind of thing that happened in 2017. 2017, that was a long, hot summer. I have to tell you, we gavelled out with no budget in, I think it was June 5th or 6th, and finally had a budget right around, I think it was right around Halloween. And Governor Malloy was basically encouraged out of the room because it took real cooperation for House and Senate, Democrat and Republican, to work together. It took a while, but we're actually benefiting from that work that was done. When you start talking about paying down, what, $8 billion in debt, putting the pension system, the state of Connecticut pension system in a better place, and having the ability, if we are to borrow money, because we have reserves, okay, we can get it at a better rate. And that's important when you think about it, because if we're buying money, borrowing it, we want to make sure that the taxpayers are not having to pay some ridiculous premium and some ridiculous rate. Now, the real budget work starts this week, because we've seen the governor's budget, and as in virtually every year, the governor comes in with a budget and the legislature does their thing in the Appropriations Committee. I serve on 4 committees: Planning and Development, I serve on the Banking Committee, I serve on Insurance and Real Estate, and Appropriations. And I have a feeling, Madam Mayor, you're not going to see me too much while we're working on what's going on in Appropriations. You couldn't help but clap. But all kidding aside, that's where the heavy lifting is. Because, yes, we have a budget from the governor, but we all know that we're closer to many of the issues than the governor and the governor's staff. So we're going to be meeting, I know we're going to be meeting all this week and probably next week to try to hammer out where we're going to be going and where we can get a solid foundation. You know, we talk about crumbling foundations. Building a budget, like you folks know, is like building a house. You've got to have that solid foundation to be able to say, yes, we can go ahead with the budget and build it out. Because there's all these requests, and it's interesting. I met on Thursday with a group of University of Connecticut professors expressing the quandary that they're in right now, trying to figure out what's going to happen with the money, et cetera. And that's going to shake its out in some fashion. UConn does some really, really good work up there. And we want to make sure that they continue to do the good work up there. And believe it or not, they're still working on the crumbling foundation issue, and they still have professors looking at it, that crumbling foundation issue, to try to be able to make determinations. So when you think about where we are today, we're kind of like you folks, and I was around for, I don't know, maybe 10, 12, 14 budgets, somewhere in that nature here at the town council. The devil's in the details, but if we get together, we work together like we did in 2017, we work together like we have been working together on issues, we can tackle things, we can get things moving in the right direction, and we can ensure that Connecticut has a bright future going forward. And that electricity issue that I was talking about, I've got to move this microphone. That's a key issue when you think about it, because everything we do in our homes, except for maybe heat, we do it with electricity. And having reliable delivery, having a regional purchasing consortium, having the Class 1 renewables are all pieces of the puzzle here. And when you put them all together, you have a bright future going forward. And we have to continue working together on this to ensure that that bright future is going forward. Now, I know I wanted to address an issue that the town council was concerned about. I know the manager brought it up pertaining to the MRSA money and the guardrails that were on there. We had a special session. We took care of that issue for 2026. So that is no longer an issue. I think you pretty much had already pointed out that it was not an issue, but it's cast in stone.
Can you explain what MRSA is?
Pardon?
Representative Del Dickey, could you please say what MRSA,
MRSA, yes.
what does it stand for?
Oh, Municipal Revenue Sharing Account.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm also sorry, Councilor Pendleton. Municipal Revenue Sharing Account. That's the one thing. It's like you get into any kind of a job and you learn all the little, you know, what the accounts are, et cetera. So that is not a concern. We passed special legislation to take that whole issue off the table, so you don't have to worry about that at all. And that's a good thing. I know I got an email from the town garage pertaining to leaf blowers. Now, I realize I digress here, but the concern about the fact that there's a bill in environment pertaining to leaf blowers, that the state of Connecticut, not the municipalities at this point, now just bear that in mind, the municipalities are not part of this. If the bill goes through, the Department of Transportation and everybody else that cuts grass and takes care of areas will have to go to battery-powered mowers and blowers. And I believe the research was done by one of your staff members, and it turns out that I think there's like 90 batteries you'd have to have on a truck to actually utilize a full-size backpack leaf blower. So that bill, just bear in mind, is only concerning the state of Connecticut and not the municipalities. I was asked about early voting, and I took a look at the statute, and I looked at what was done, and the cost of early voting is considered a municipal mandate. So the question is, maybe we can do something about that when it comes to the early voting. So towns like South Windsor, East Windsor, Ellington, East Hartford aren't getting clobbered with those extra costs. These are some of the little things we can do that will help the manager and will help the folks in East Hartford, Ellington, and East Windsor. So there's a number of opportunities we have here. And you're right, the fiscal guardrails are doing their job. They have produced so much money that we have the ability to, we pay down $8 billion worth of debt. Our credit rating is much higher than it's ever been, and we're in a good position. The question is, we need to carefully look at it and see where we're going to go and what we can do, and do it in a bipartisan fashion. I think everybody has to be at the table. Everyone has to be part of the discussion, because there are opportunities. I don't know if I talk quite as long as you, but those are just some of the issues that... One more minute and you will be... Oh, good. It's interesting to note that bipartisanship is not dead in Connecticut. And that's something to remember. Because when we work together, whether it be on a town council, whether it be in the legislature, whether it be in municipal government, you got a better product. And I'm glad to see, especially what happened last Thursday with House and Senate, Vinnie Candelora, Minority Leader, and Martin Looney, the Senate Leader, working together, along with Senator Fonfara. It speaks well for coming up with solutions that can work, that can get things done, and we can solve problems. So I'll turn it back over to you, Senator, if you have anything else left.
All right, I just wanted to add one more thing. Now, I'll start with a quick little disclaimer. We have not passed the budget for the state, but we are starting to look and working on the budget quite closely. So a couple of things which would be hopefully good news. The governor's budget, as you just heard, was an initial budget where the governor said, this is where I stand. And we have to keep in mind that it's, the legislature is a co-equal branch of the government, same level as the governor, and we are actually looking at the budget, and we have worked on the budget as well. And when we worked on this budget, this is what we are hoping to be able to achieve. These are the numbers right now. They have not been voted on. Take that with a grain of salt, but I'm just going to mention that the Board of Education, the ECS funding, the town of South Windsor is going to be held harmless. In other words, every year you see a slight reduction in the money that comes to South Windsor that is based on a formula that was created before I was part of the legislative body, but that's where it was created. But this time around, we've been able to keep the same amount as the South Windsor Board of Education had the money last year. So that's the good news that I want to share with you. The total amount of, there's various ways that the state of Connecticut provides some funding to the town of South Windsor, not only through ECS, but other means as well. The last year, or the fiscal year 25, it was $14.69 million. This time around, it is, again, not official, just unofficial, $15.148 million. So we are increasing the amount of money that the town of South Windsor is going to receive from the state when it's going to be voted on. And then that's going to be the same amount in 2027 as well. So 15.148 million. If you want the full amount, it's 15148,926. And so we've been thankfully able to do that right now. That's far more than what the governor had, far more than what would have happened otherwise. We are fighting this battle because we need to make sure it's very hard for our community. And you have a very difficult job ahead of you because you want this town to function at the top level that it has, and you want to be able to provide the top level care, but there's a price for it. And the people have difficulty paying that price. People are hurting between the utility costs, the cost of medications, healthcare. So, and you don't want to compromise the services, but you also don't want them to pay for it. So we, as a state, are going to try to do what we can, as much as we can, with the restraints and the challenges that we have. And that's why part of me wants to see if there should be a reform to be able to address the issues that the state has. If the state was short on money, that would be a different conversation. We have the money right now, and people are hurting. So that's where I feel that there's an opportunity to help people, because with what's going to happen with the federal cuts, we may need a lot more support. So that will be a conversation in the coming days and weeks that we will have, and perhaps we can keep you updated on that. With that, I'm sure we can have another round, or have questions.
No, just a couple of brief comments, because I don't want anyone with their eyes glazing over with the two of us talking back and forth up here. It is refreshing to see the workings in a bipartisan fashion, because that's how we got to the sweet spot of what we have in the way of financial success. And we can build on it. We can build on that working together, and I know we work well together. And that's really what it's all about, because the opportunities are there. We have to look at things globally and, of course, keep South Windsor near and dear to our hearts and your hearts. Every decision that you're making up there is for South Windsor, and that's very important. So I think we're set.
Madam Mayor, if he does not work hard well, I call you and thank you for your help with that.
And I couldn't help but notice you clapping when I said something about the Appropriations Committee, and you won't see me too much.
Okay, we have a few questions. I guess Councilor Carey?
Thank you very much. This was very, very helpful. Appreciate you guys taking the time. A couple things. When we met with the Board of Ed, one of the issues facing them is unfunded mandates. And, you know, I am sure there are wonderful reasons for what we are doing. But to ask our Board of Education to do things and then not give them any money to do them with doesn't really make a lot of sense, because, you know, it only puts additional pressure on residents. And we are not the only town feeling this way. There was an editorial in the paper called Why Aren't You All Whining? And it talks about the legislature of Connecticut and the fact that, you know, things are being mandated and not funded, and it's all the responsibilities falling on municipalities. So I'm going to give you just one example that came out of our budget. And if I get this wrong, Mr. Zimmerman, would you please correct me? I think there's a composting pilot that we're doing this year, and it's supposed to roll out to all of our schools in the next fiscal year. And I believe that's costing us, for one school, $50,000. Is that, I think that's correct. So when we roll that out to all schools, that's an additional $300,000 our schools will have to fund, not for teachers, not for counselors, not for the things that are going to hands-on help our children, but for a composting program, which is probably a great idea, and there's lots of good reasons for doing it. But then I think the state needs to fund it, or at least fund it 2/3, 1/3. And I just think we have to come up with a way that if we're going to put in a mandate, that we do two things. One is we fund it, and the second is, especially if it's education-based, that we make sure that we have those teachers as part of that focus group, because I know I don't know what teachers need, but they know, and I'm sure you guys are brilliant, but you're not all teachers. So we really need some focus groups so that the teachers are involved. And maybe if you think of it a way, one of the things I suggested at our last joint meeting was maybe we should come up with a subgroup to work with you guys, so when there's something coming up that's, a mandate, that we get you the feedback that you need so that we don't put in things that may not work for our schools. So just your thoughts on that.
I know we've had conversations, of course, with the housing commissioner, and I've had conversations with the commissioner of education. And for whatever purpose and reason, they consider South Windsor a wealthy town, even though the average person here is having a tough time making ends meet. So I don't know that I have an answer for that particular question without actually looking at the issue personally and closely, because I hate shooting from the hip.
Point well taken.
I just have one other question. And as you know, both of you know, and I know you've talked to Dr. Carter, we're the fastest growing school district in the state of Connecticut. Our growth rate has been 15% over the last 10 years. We also have a wonderful planning and zoning organization that, created an affordable housing plan. We have built affordable housing into our regulations. We have about 6% affordable housing in our town, so we are doing everything we can in good faith to do the right things. But one of the things we really need from the two of you is we need a way to put a year, 2-year moratorium on, I know, I always get this wrong, 840G, I think it is.
Dash 30G.
30G. Because with our growth, and with the fact that we just built 4 new elementary schools that are packed, in fact, we have, additional units at those schools, we cannot afford to have an 830G come in here right now. It would require a new school, and I have no idea where that money's coming from. So we really, really need, we're in a unique shape, and we're doing all the right things. We need your help.
I'll be perfectly blunt. If you had that moratorium, and we have been working towards that last year, this year, if we had a huge influx in apartments, we wouldn't have the seats in the schools for the kids. And I doubt very much you would get a referendum passed. And you would see a quality of life change horrifically. I have to make that observation. Go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Carey, for your advocacy on this issue, and we've had a few conversations. So Dr. Carter has been phenomenal. She has this whole presentation, and what I've been able to do is to make sure that she's able to sit down and have a presentation with the leadership, because what people do not understand in the rest of the state is that South Windsor is a special place, and it has seen an increase in the student population, and the education quality has resulted in an influx that was unprecedented across the state. No other town has this. And that comes with a price. And the price is we have no room. And if we have no room, we actually have to figure out a way to try and look at this very intentionally and strategically, to look at how can we provide the best quality of life for all our citizens. And for the education part, because of lack of space, we are not going to be able to do that. And we are legally bound to do it if the people come. So that's where the conversation is. People understand this, and then they're just impressed at where we are, but they also understand that it's coming with a price where they will have to help us out. So I'm hoping we should be able to get somewhere. We're just 2 votes. And this issue is such a important emotional issue that 2 votes won't get us there, and then because many other towns have their own reasoning for it. None of them has as compelling a reason as South Windsor does. And we also have a cheerleader and a person and a teacher with Dr. Carter, who's able to explain this perhaps in a manner that nobody else in this entire town can do. So that's allowed us to really help many people in leadership positions to understand that South Windsor needs their help. So we're going to continue that effort to hopefully gain some more ground and hopefully get some results. Cannot promise, but the efforts are there, and the teacher and the efforts are there for sure. Thank you.
And this has been ongoing now, I want to say, for probably about 4 years. We've been having the conversation because you could see it coming. And quite frankly, if we ended up with transportation-oriented development or hundreds of apartments, you would see the quality of education crater. Because quite frankly, we don't have the infrastructure to support that many students in such a quick time. And again, it goes back to, would a referendum ever pass? And I would be really surprised if it did. Because I remember when we first started with the plan for the 4 schools. And it was going right along great, Pleasant Valley being the last one. And then suddenly we had an influx, and we now have portables at PR Smith, right? So, will you guys have a long night ahead or what?
Yeah. We do now. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Couldn't agree more with Councilor Carey's comments. I know I've brought it up on multiple occasions with the superintendent in regards to the composting issue, and she's just as confused, doesn't know who it benefits. Again, great idea. I have gardens and chickens, and I love the idea behind it, but the fact that we are on the hook for it, and there's no explanation as far as who's actually benefiting from it. So, you know, being in the transportation business, I know it's going to take somebody very specialized with the DOT regulated trucking in order to haul the bio waste or food waste. Yeah. It's going to take a certified facility to actually take care of it, treat it, bag it, whatever. So there's a very small amount of folks that are actually qualified to even handle this stuff. So I would look deeply into that and who is handling it. And then I think it would be great if the towns could actually distribute it to either the residents at no cost. Obviously, South Windsor has a rich history of farming. Be able to sell it to the farmers for pennies on the dollar, so the town could recoup a little bit of that revenue while also helping businesses and farms in our own town. But more importantly, if the state's mandating this on us, we're not benefiting from it. Why are we paying for it at all? So I wouldn't mind some sort of mutual financial contribution if we were also being able to utilize the compost that we're creating. So I think it is a very important issue. Upwards, we don't know the numbers exactly, but $300,000 seems fairly accurate. That's a big chunk of money in a town that's hurting financially, but also hurting growth-wise and forecasting the potential needs for new schools in the future. $300,000 is money that could be spent elsewhere. So great idea, terrible execution in my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of other towns would agree. Thank you.
Seeing
Okay.
any other questions? No. Councilor King, this was your idea. No.
They calling me, then, okay, no problem. It was my idea because I think it is, and thank you, Madam Mayor, I think it's very important that our residents understand that while we have a little bit of control, and we'll be discussing that later tonight with our town budget, it's really you two that control the purse strings when it comes to getting funds for South Windsor, taking care of the residents of South Windsor. And so we need to have a better understanding about what is happening at the top level. Yes, we see the President of the United States and all those types of things, but at the end of the day, it's you two that we've elected to put in the position to say, okay, how do we help the residents specifically of South Windsor? That being said, one of the questions that I've had for a little while is just in regards to, because, you know, and thank you, my colleague, the deputy mayor, in talking about a program that was perhaps put out with great positive energy, but now has come back to kind of, or could come back to slap us in the face. When we voted for this Millstone deal back in 2017, hindsight is 2020, Representative Delnicki. So when you voted for it, what were you thinking at that time? Because now I realize that you're voting against it, and great foresight, but at that time, what was the thought process? Because again, to my fellow deputy mayor's point, we can have something that may be a great idea, but did we really think it through, or was it more of an energy type of a thing? Well, all my colleagues are voting for it, so I'm gonna vote for it. How it affected South Windsor, perhaps, I don't know if that came into thought.
Class 1 renewable.
So for the
Class
2-year-olds
1 renewable,
in the
think
room
about
like
it.
myself, what exactly does that mean? Because it's the Millstone deal.
We are, and this is hard to understand if you don't read into the energy policy that the state of Connecticut passed over the years, way before either one of us were involved. That is a Class 1 renewable. It's going to get reclassified as a Class 1 renewable. And that in and of itself, along with, and there's talk about other nuclear facilities conceivably going on. So it's real simple.
So for those people that are hurting right now, you're telling me that a decision then was simple to make that affected all of our rates going up?
That, again,
Because you're voting against it now.
if you understand what a Class 1 renewable is,
Well, no, that's fine.
just listen for a second.
Of course.
So a windmill costs about 20 cents a kilowatt hour, 25 cents a kilowatt hour. Classifying it as a Class 1 renewable, you're down around 9-10 cents, a fraction of that. And it can go down even lower once it's considered part of the renewable portfolio, and that's where it's going.
Okay, yeah, obviously, I'm a learned man, but obviously I'm not that learned. I just want to really understand, 1 minute you voted for it, now you're voting against it. And I want to know, did you,
Wait a second.
you voted for the Millstone deal, didn't you?
Again, Class
Yes.
1 renewable.
I'm just asking a question because what happened then to what happened now, because as we're talking about composting and all those other mandates that are put on the residents of South Windsor, I can care, the residents of South Windsor, when that deal was voted on, and you're documented to vote, you voted on that
Yes.
deal. Okay.
Yep.
But now you're against it. I just want to understand.
Wait a second. I'm not against it. What did I say?
Okay.
I said it very clearly. It has to be considered a Class 1 renewable.
But you're mad at
Very,
Eversource.
very clearly.
But you're mad at Eversource for a deal that you voted on. And you're blaming Eversource for that deal when you voted for that deal. And so I just want to know, we all make mistakes. Would you consider that, in hindsight being 2020, no different than this composting situation that's been mandated to the residents of South Windsor that we have to figure out potentially a way to pay for? And thank God for Dr. Carter for having the foresight to say, you know what, let's just wait until something happens one way or the other, let them figure it out. In hindsight, if you had to do it over again, would you vote for that deal?
It is a Class 1 renewable, and as such, that provides 60% of the base power in the state.
So you would vote for it again?
So you would turn that off?
I'm asking, would you vote for it again with the knowledge you
Would
have
turn that
now?
off?
Would you vote for it? I'm not in your position. You voted for it. Just like I'm responsible for the budget that we vote on, you voted for that deal, and I'm asking you,
Yeah.
would you vote for it again?
Again, it should be a Class 1 renewable
Okay, I won't beat a dead horse. It was a yes or no question. I just wanted to know if you'd vote for it.
Real
again.
simple.
So it's yes or no?
It's a Class 1 renewable.
Okay. All right, like I said, I wanted to figure that out. That's something that's been on my mind, especially as I'm paying the same electric bills as everybody else. And again, I'm thankful that my learned colleagues are talking about mandates that are put on us that are voted on, but then when it gets down to the people that really have to pay for it, even
Again.
yourself.
It's a
That's all.
Class 1 renewable, and it delivers 60% of the base load in the state of Connecticut.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I appreciate you guys coming out here. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I think maybe if I could try to take a crack at what you're trying to say. I agree. Need things explained a little bit further. One word answer doesn't always do it for me. I guess just like all of the 9 of us here, we're not allowed to say, you know, well, we inherited a past problem, right? People want to know that voted for us, the 27,000 some odd people in town, what are we going to do about it, right? So I've heard both of you say 2017, 20 whatever, you know, problems in the past. I guess the simple ask and mandate from us and the rest of the districts that you both serve are, what are you gonna do about it, right? Not people in the past got us in this position. It's what are the two of you gonna stand together? I'm glad to hear you work together, but simply, what are you gonna do about it? Because I'm 35, got three little kids. If anybody knows what hurting feels like, it's me, right? So not what did the people before you do to get us in this position, what are you guys gonna do now? Just like us, right? The 6 of us could say, well, we inherited this issue, this. No, what are we gonna work together, the 9 of us, to do about it now? And if people don't like what we do about it now, then they make a change. So is that kind of what you were saying? Trying to get what is the, not what has been done, not as what has been voted on. I don't necessarily think I heard either of you say kind of what you're gonna do about it. There was just a lot of facts, a lot of things that have been done in the past, but our hope is that in the future, we're gonna start hearing what are the two of you doing for us now and in the future. Thank you.
I think maybe I went through it too fast, but I'll go through this. I tried to explain the
Oh,
procurement.
it's okay. I can go back and read it, and I
Yeah.
apologize if there were
But
notes,
We can
but
go back to the bipartisan group that's coming up with the ability to utilize the green bank for the public benefit, which it should be, and to be able to have the securities so that if they have something fail, they can actually not have to pay for it immediately from the ratepayers. And there's that opportunity, again, for the rate to go down 25% based on what we talked about, what I talked about just a half an hour ago.
here's an idea, I guess. Write a letter to that CEO, the top 10 CEO in all of the United States, and instead of us paying this public benefit fee, or maybe we can keep paying it, but I'd love like a tax receipt, because we're essentially doing a charitable action, right? Without our own will. We're just forced to do this. I'm a charitable person. I have no issue helping others, but you know, this guy's getting all rich, fat, and happy, and they have, you said, almost $900 billion worth of profit this past year.
811.
And over $1 billion in years past. Can't they just send us all a tax receipt so we can write it off for that portion of the bill? You know, just creative ideas that the two of you, go ahead, take it. I don't even know if that's possible, but if I'm paying this portion of my bill that's benefiting others, while the CEO of a company, publicly traded company, I agree with you, Senator Amwar, it's kind of crazy that our energy is publicly traded. Why aren't we able to write that off? If it's essentially a donation to others.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
I think we're all on the same page with respect to the issue. I think this issue, at least this bill that we are talking about, would reduce it by 20%. And the procurement, if you look at that, there's an opportunity for another 10, 15, even 20%. So there's an opportunity to work on some of those components. But you have to understand the process and what it does, because that's part of the difficulty. There's so many moving parts to it. And as I mentioned, that there's going to be $100 million again because of the 9% that's coming from Quebec. And we can't control that. That's $100 million right there because of the tariffs. Now, that came out of nowhere, but as we're traveling and listening to the challenges and addressing them, the total bill may not change even if we reduce it by 20%. So these are parts of the difficulty, but this is going to have an impact on the businesses, because a business in another part of the country where they're not paying as much is going to be less expensive to run. And we are having difficulty with our businesses in our state. We are also on the natural gas front. We are one of the last states to get to the natural gas as well. So it makes our life difficult because of the location that we are in from the natural gas perspective. So we want to try to explore other options as well to diversify, but this is going to remain a very important issue. I'm sure we'll have opportunities to talk about the various solutions we are looking at. But
It's Senate Bill 1560, and it contains the establishment, Senate Bill 1560, and it contains, again, establish the Connecticut Energy Procurement Authority, establish the Electric Rate Stabilization Fund, redefine Class 1 renewable energy sources, require the Public Utility Regulatory Authority to incorporate time of use components into the electric rates, establish the Energy Infrastructure Transition Fund, allow for electric distribution companies to issue securities concerning storm remediation costs, and the authorization of the state of Connecticut to fund the Green Fund. So this is the first actual attempt to do something to solve the problem. And I've got to, again, commend Senator Looney, and I've got to commend Representative Vinnie Candelora for working collaboratively, Democrat and Republican, House and Senate, because we need solutions, and this is an opportunity. All set?
Okay, seeing nothing further. Think we're
thank
all
you
set.
so much. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Take care now.
Okay. Moving on to item 7. Thank you. Public input for items on the agenda. Public input shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, the speaker shall approach the lectern, give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speakers may address the council on any item on the agenda. The speaker shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Mike Lillis.
Hi, my name is Mike Lillis, 109 Mill Pond Drive. Any proposed budget cuts threaten to undo the work that the Board of Education has done to make this town an attractive home for families and young professionals. Cuts to critical education programs are not what the people are asking for. It's really simple. Cutting funding for schools will drive young families and young professionals to other towns. And with them goes tax dollars and economic growth. My experience as a student at South Windsor High School inspired me to pursue a career in STEM. I'm now working at UConn in their IT department, and I own a house in South Windsor. I volunteer hundreds of hours every year to mentor students at South Windsor High School on their robotics team. My choice to live in South Windsor was directly driven by my experiences at South Windsor High School and the opportunity to come back and mentor the robotics team and help those students grow. I would not be standing here today if this did not matter deeply to me and those students. The robotics team relies on direct and indirect funding from the Board of Education. We have 3 tech ed teachers that support the team. They're paid coaches. We use machines in the machine shop, computers in the computer lab, and we get direct funding from the Board of Ed to help offset the cost of registration for events and team travel. Budget cuts threaten this critical infrastructure. At the high school level, we have over 100 registered students on the team. The middle school and elementary school robotics programs are supported by our tech ed teachers and volunteers, and that accounts for another about 100 students. Budget cuts threaten the learning and growth of all of those students and all of the students that will come after them. Cutting school funding puts additional stress on every part of the system. While we rely heavily on school support, most of the support for the robotics program at the high school level comes from volunteers. These are industry professionals that donate their time, energy, and money. Some of them drive over an hour, 3 days a week for 4 months out of the year to support students at South Windsor High School. Some of them, like myself, live right in town. We choose to volunteer at South Windsor because there is such strong support for STEM programs from the Board of Education, from the town, and from the administration. Budget cuts threaten the strength of those STEM programs and threaten to alienate the volunteers that want to be here. If budget cuts are approved, we risk having to scale back opportunities for students on the robotics team and other STEM programs like it. I hope that the Town Council makes the right decision to continue supporting STEM education for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next is Vidal Rastogi. Can you hit the button on the bottom? Thank you.
Hey, Badal Akash Rastogi. I'm at 45 Pond Lane in South Windsor. First, honestly, just wanted to thank everybody here. Anybody who's in this room cares about our students and our town, so I just appreciate everybody. My wife, Molly, and I are both professionals working in STEM. This is also pertaining to budget cuts that affect STEM education in town. She works in aerospace as an engineer. I work in data science. She and I specifically chose to move to South Windsor in 2020 over other areas including West Hartford, Glastonbury, Avon, etc., due in massive part to the wide variety of STEM education opportunities and investment in this town's schools over the last few years, particularly our town's World Championship winning high school robotics team and our brand new elementary schools, which were clearly very valuable to us. Both my wife and I are not only volunteers with the high school robotics team, where we support over 100 students, but we also independently run robotics programs in town for middle school and elementary school children as volunteers, in coordination with their parents and our high school students who also act as coaches for these younger students, again, as volunteers. Last fall, we brought access to LEGO robotics teams to over 40 kids in town from ages 10 to 13. Overwhelmingly, the parents of these kids were frustrated by the existing programs within our schools not having enough staff or support to enroll more students in those programs. Access to STEM should be open to anyone who wants to participate, as unlike in other sports of the world, anyone can go pro in STEM. Not every kid can play in the NBA, but all kids have the ability to become a math teacher, a doctor, or a scientist. In fact, I believe that the kids who might find the cure for a certain type of cancer may already be within the walls of our schools, just waiting for somebody to inspire them to go into STEM. My wife and I already provide these types of programs separate from the school to kids in town because that's what makes living in South Windsor attractive. And because when we're creating strong citizens, we should foster an attitude where STEM is highly valued. We must grow a population that can fill the vacant roles in engineering and manufacturing that exist in town and in our state. I know this because I work directly with companies such as Raytheon and the Connecticut Manufacturing Innovation Fund to fund our LEGO robotics teams and our high school teams. And they're always telling us that these vacancies exist and will exist for the foreseeable future. We must also continue to support STEM programs in our schools so we don't lose residents to other towns. The parents that I speak to desperately ask me for more and more spots in the robotics programs I run, but I only have so many volunteers who can dedicate hundreds of hours to it on top of their full-time jobs and obligations. I urge you to please reconsider how we invest in STEM education in our schools and in our town. Families crave more of it, not less. Finally, as somebody who already dedicates hundreds of hours each year to our children, despite having any children of our own just yet, please let me know how else I can help you, the town council members, better serve this community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Daria Plummer.
Well, thank you. It got fixed, and I'm really happy it got fixed. I really am, because I was going to ask you to have it fixed, even though it wasn't on the agenda. But thank you very much. Daria Plummer, 235 Orchard Hill Drive. Mayor Delnicki and members of the Town Council, you know why I'm here. I have been here before, but I want to take a different approach. If you were in my class, or if I were reading to you in a classroom, I would ask you now to all stand, and I would ask you to shake it all and do some other movements because you need a break. I'm really very grateful to Representative Delnicki and Senator Anwar. I learned a lot, and I have a lot of questions because I don't understand a lot. Their job is complex. Your job is complex. My job as a teacher was complex. I, like the gentleman who spoke just before me, moved to this community as a hired teacher and chose to live here because I liked this community and the school system back in the day, as I'm long often to say. I drove here tonight the long way, as I would call it, down Oakland Road past Mayor Delnicki's house, as opposed to going the curvy way down Valley View, and I saw nothing but beauty. And if I were to drive down Main Street or the rest of Ellington Road or Sullivan Avenue, I would see beauty in so many places. So clearly I'm here to speak in favor of 13A and B, the full funding of the Board of Education and the town government request. I'm also here to tell you that we are at I think, a crossroads and a unique opportunity, because we're not only a unique community because of our growth, but of its beauty and everything that we provide our citizens. But you folks here in front of me who are listening to me have to do the heavy, heavy lifting. And there's such great discord and disharmony nationally over the definition and support for democracy, and statewide less so. But disagreements do exist. However, I was so heartened tonight to hear from Representative Delnicki how much the coordination is coming together, that people are working together, and that's what leadership, that's what everything is all about. All right. I am not a gambler. I'm not a card player. I'm not willing to see where things are going to go. I really have to know that this community that we all live in and love and support is going to stay as fine as it has been, and as the gentleman who spoke before me, providing the quality education that has been proven and that we want to continue to see. So my long suit is not where does it all go. I disagree that any cut to the Board of Education budget or the town, but any cut to the Board of Education budget will not hurt. It will take another year, if not more, to make up for whatever they cut from your proposed $1.3 million proposal. Once the damage is done, It is done, and we have to make up for that loss. So I think here in South Windsor, we have to protect what we have, a great school system and a very great community. We're either proud of what we provide or we're not. And I'm, for one, standing in front of you, short, as you can see, am very proud of what we provide. Damage has begun on a federal level. It just has. And do we as a community sit back, or do we see how far it will go? Or do we stand up for our beliefs that we are to keep our community desirable, attractive, strong, and support our public school and our community requests? Requests which I remind you have gone through iteration after iteration of reduction already. So I'm going to close with all politics is local, a very common phrase. It begins with us, and frankly, it begins with the 9 of you. And to steal from Representative Delnicki again, he spoke of the bipartisan cooperation as a solution, and that's what I would like to see from you, a bipartisan cooperation and solution, and to fully fund the budgets as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward at this time for any item that is on the agenda? Are you here to speak for item on the agenda?
No, it's just a public comment.
Yep, this is public input for any item that is on the agenda. Oh, the Guru Vandana. I spoke of that during the mayor's remarks, that it's at May 4th at 4:30 at Pleasant Valley School. And I went through the whole explanation of what Guru Vandana is about. So since it's not on the agenda, that would not come until item 15 for items not on the agenda. Seeing none for anything on the agenda, moving on to item 8, adoption of minutes of previous meeting. Councilor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we approve the March 24, 2025 Town Council / Board of Education Joint Work Session minutes.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any changes, corrections, additions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. 8B, Councilor King.
I also move that we approve the April 7th, 2025 Town Council regular meeting minutes.
We have a second. Councilor King. Lewis, any changes, corrections? Councilor Fitzgerald.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. On the last page of the minutes, I think it is. Hang on.
Page 9, section 203.
Correct. Under the vote.
Councilor Lewis is missing?
Yes.
That's the same one I had.
Oh, okay.
So we were on the same page.
Cool.
Okay. We have that one correction. All those in favor of any other changes, corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amended, Councilor Lewis, the page 9, second paragraph where it says call for a roll call vote. It's Councilor Balboni, Bugansky, Carey voted nay, and so did Councilor Lewis, and his name is missing. Because it says 4 nays, there's only 3 names. Got it? No, this was the one that Deputy Mayor was here. Okay, all those in favor of adding on Counselor Lewis? Aye. Opposed? And all those in favor of the minutes as amended? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay. Moving on to item 9, communications, liaisons, officers, and boards directly to the council. Councilor King.
Oh, I apologize.
Seeing none? Okay, moving on to item 10, reports from committees. Seeing none. Moving on to item 11, consent agenda. 11, nothing on 11A, no first reading. 11B, second reading. Councilor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Motion to approve 11B1 as a second reading on the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 11C, miscellaneous, having none. Moving on to item 12, unfinished business. Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
Resolution accepting the resignation of Jeff Trachtenberg as an alternate member of the Board of Assessment Appeals, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Housing and Fair Rent Commission effective March 23rd, 2025. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby accepts with regret the resignation of Jeff Trachtenberg as an alternate member of the Board of Assessment Appeals, an alternate member of Zoning Board of Appeals, and an alternate member of the Housing and Fair Rent Commission effective March 23rd, 2025. And be it further resolved that the South Windsor Town Council extends its thanks to Jeff Trachtenberg for the time dedicated to serving the community by membership on the Board of Assessment Appeals, Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Housing and Fair Rent Commission.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 12B, Councilor Begansky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution accepting the resignation of James Byrne as a member of the Housing and Fair Rent Commission effective March 24, 2025. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby accepts with regret the resignation of James Byrne as a member of the Housing and Fair Rent Commission effective March 24, 2025. And be it further resolved that the South Windsor Town Council extends its thanks to James Byrne for the time dedicated to serving the community by membership on the Housing and Fair Rent Commission.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 12C, Councilor Balboni.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution approving a flag to be flown over the town of South Windsor in honor of the United States Army's 250th anniversary. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves a request to fly the United States Army flag from June 1st, 2025 through June 14th, 2025, and asks the town manager, Michael Maniscalco, to have the flag raised on the flagpole at the Wapping Community House on Sunday, June 1st, 2025, and lowered on Saturday, June 14th, 2025, in honor of the United States Army's 250th anniversary as shown in Exhibit A.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 12D, Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution accepting the naming of Public Lands and Buildings Subcommittee's recommendation to name the area behind the Town Hall adjacent to Peterson Way the Invasive Plants Education Area. Whereas the naming of Public Lands and Buildings Subcommittee met on Monday, March 10th, 2025, and discussed naming the area behind the Town Hall adjacent to Peterson Way the Invasive Plants Education Area, and whereas the South Windsor Invasive Plant Working Group has eliminated invasive plant species and planted native plants behind the Town Hall adjacent to Peterson Way since 2018, Whereas the subcommittee voted unanimously to recommend to the town council that the area behind the town hall adjacent to Peterson Way be renamed to Invasive Plants Education Area and serve as an educational example for school children and other town vegetation management groups. Now therefore be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby accepts the naming of Public Lands and Buildings Subcommittee recommendation to name in the area behind the town hall adjacent to Peterson Way the Invasive Plants Education Area and place a sign, and be it further resolved that the area behind the town hall adjacent to Peterson Way will be named Invasive Plants Education Area as more fully described in Exhibit B.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Counselor Fitzgerald? No? Nothing else to add? Counselor Pendleton?
I'm going to say this correctly. It's kind of a strange name, Invasive Plant Education Area. Is there a different IPEA? I mean, I don't know. Who came up with that name? It's kind of a long name. Mr. Maniscalco, I think the town did, right? Or that group did?
I believe this was submitted by town staff as well as, I think, a group of volunteers that worked out in that area to remove the invasive species that were in that area. Even if you use the acronym, you'd still need to have something for what that acronym stands for. So we could certainly use that acronym as common vernacular, but yet have it be known as the invasive species area.
And how is it going to be used as an education area since all the invasive plants are gone?
So actually, if you were to walk through that area now, there are some signs associated with that. There's a trail that they built through there so that you can see, you know, the process that they went through and how, the end result.
Right. And we rented goats for that, to chew all that up at one point. It was quite interesting.
Goats did volunteer in that effort
Yes.
to remove the invasive species.
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, moving on to 12E, Counselor Pendleton.
Resolution approving refund batch number 16 for 15 refunds totaling $31,436.82. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves 15 refunds, the total of said refunds being $31,436.82 as more fully described in Exhibit C.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to 13A, Counselor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution adopting the Board of Education budget for fiscal year 2025-2026. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby adopts a Board of Education budget with expenditures totaling some dollar amount not listed for the fiscal year commencing on July 1st, 2025 and terminating on June 30th, 2026, a copy of which is posted in the town clerk's office.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Counselor Fitzgerald? Counselor King?
We have until when, Mr. Maniscalco, to approve this budget?
I believe it's in the charter for May 15th, but don't hold me to that exactly.
Yes, May 15th is the deadline.
Yeah.
So my point of discussion is just, since it's here, then I recognize the fact that a lot of us are still chewing on it, discussing it. We're still getting comments from the public. I would suggest that we postpone this. If we still have 1 or 2 or 3 weeks, then we can come back and have a discussion in terms of making this some type of a resolution then. But if we don't have the number, unless my colleagues have a number that they want to put out there, then we can do that and then kind of have that discussion now.
Counselor Carey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to propose that we put in $98,880,328 for the fiscal year commencing on July 1st, 2025, and terminating on June 30th, 2026. $98,880,328.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on the $98,880,328 motion by Councilor Carey? Councilor Carey.
So, just to address a couple of things regarding that dollar amount. The Board of Education budget had excess amounts of money under medical expenses. Within the Board of Education is a self-funded insurance. It also has a $250,000, I don't mean to nerd you all out, a $250,000 stopgap, which means that if anyone's cost hit $250,000, the reinsurance company picks up the dollars as opposed to the Board of Ed. So in the Board of Ed budget that we all received, you'll see that they had a 7.87% increase in that particular line item. And that's about $450,000 more than they need and more than what has been in that area in the past. And medical expenses are something that your actuary is usually set for you. And so while you can build them up, it isn't necessarily something that you routinely build up. At the end of last year, when the Board of Ed closed out the 23-24 year, they had about $600,000 that they were able to transfer to different accounts. One of the accounts was to medical expenses. So when we look at this, the dollar amount, that we are a little bit overfunded there for $470,000. We are also overfunded in pensions, as basically last year at the end of the year, again, the Board of Ed had dollars left over in the realm of about $600,000, and they were able to transfer more than $125,000 to their pension fund. And so another place that the Board of Ed, you know, and you can always make your pension funds higher, but the Board of Ed is funded at 86, the town is funded at about 75, 76. So it's well funded at the moment, according to the actuaries that we've talked to. Councilor Pendleton is on, and Councilor Lewis are both on the pension committee with me. So they were overfunded slightly there as well by about $300,000. And then there is some reserve funds that, again, some money was moved to at the end of last year, which gives them a little bit of room. So where the difference is coming from is these three big buckets, and that will leave about $300,000 that will have to be addressed. So that's the number. Sorry.
Councilor Pendleton.
Thank you. I keep seeing you refer to are you referring to the school budget book over there? And then where are you doing your comparisons and how do you know that information? Just so you can share with the rest of the council and the public, where we can educate ourselves on this. And since this is new information this evening, and I'm not sure that this should even.
So some of this information we discussed at the joint meeting between town council and the Board of Ed. So, when I talk about the stop loss information, that's questions that I asked actually last year, not this year. But when we look at their numbers, and I'll get you a page number if it will help you, I had them all tagged. You'll see that it's like a 7.87% increase, and then if you go to last year's budget for medical expenses, you'll see it's nowhere near that number.
And on what page is that?
Hold on, I'll find it for you. Somebody else wants to talk while I do this.
I believe if Counselor Lewis has got a question, it might come back to you, so.
I don't have a question.
Huh?
I don't have a question.
Because you have a light on. That's
I
why.
found the page 72.
Excuse me?
It's discussion.
Okay.
Page 72. That's also where the premium dollars are.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, can I just ask a question?
Of Counselor Carey, sure.
Yes. So I thought you said something about, did you just say 7.68% or something like that? I don't see 7.68 on this page anywhere.
Sorry, I had that off at 7.12.
And I'm sorry, just one more question.
Sure.
So, because we're self-funded, and also, I would think this maybe applies to the pension contributions. No, but the dental and the medical. So what happens if you cut that and then more claims come in this year than came in the year before? And now the board has a short.
Well, generally, this is a reserve fund, so it's like an excess fund. But then, they would have to be paid up to the stop loss limit. So, the actuaries generally come up with these numbers, and they use historical, like 12 to 15 months worth of historical healthcare claim information to generate a number. This number was a little in excess of what the actuaries had suggested. You can build a reserve if you want to, but it's not necessary.
Where are the numbers that the actuaries suggested? I mean, have we seen them?
I have not, but we did have a conversation in passing with Dr. Carter, where she concurred that they could probably reduce this dollar amount by about $470,000.
So if the claims end up coming out more than what's in the budget, if it comes out more than the amount that you want to cut, then who's on the hook for those costs? The teachers themselves?
No, never. No. Basically, the Board of Ed, the town, they would have to be covered. Generally, these types of numbers are fairly solid. Now, you could have strange things, and if we didn't have that stop loss prevention in there, I wouldn't feel as comfortable. But what stop loss says is, if I get very sick and I incur $500,000 in claims this year, we will only pay $250,000 of it, and then the rest will be paid by our reinsurer. And so, in the pot, and I need to be careful that I don't get really nerdy, but like in the population that we're sometimes dealing with as teachers, your biggest danger is a premature infant who can cost, $2 million. However, because we have that stop loss, that this plan's risk is $250,000. And anything above that will be picked up by the reinsurer. And so it gives you, so it's very smart to have that there. And it gives you a level of protection that, not everybody has. So, like, the way this plan is laid out is smart. But it also is a reason why you don't need excessive medical expenses, because you do have that protection there.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm in favor of this proposal. The reason why is because historically we've had the room, and the fact of the matter is we are not cutting the budget. We're cutting some of the increase in the budget. The STEM program will be fine, and I support the STEM program. I appreciate the gentleman who spoke with regard to that. I'm very proud of this town also. I'd like to see nothing cut of anything, but the fact of the matter is as we didn't hear from the senator and our representatives, the state made a decision to take $96 million away from our revenues from trailers and trucks taxes. So that's money we didn't have. So it's a bit tighter here than usual. I know I can speak for all 9 of us that I can say we strongly support Dr. Carter and the Board of Education. I support a little bit of restraint, however, and I support a little bit of reduction on the increase. I want to emphasize a little bit of reduction on the increase. Budget's not being cut, it's just being lessened. Thank you.
Councilor Pendleton.
Thank you. I'd like to go back to where I was speaking to you earlier, please, on the information that you've presented to us. Could you please tell me and/or Ms. Perry, tell us where the pension information can be found and what the funding is and the reduction in that? Yeah. Well, I mean, I know you sit on the pension committee. I don't know if you would have that information.
I don't have it in front of me right now.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
It's okay. It's okay. So where do you have in Councilor Carey, what page is the pension information on in the Board of Education book?
72.
It's also on 72? And then what was the third item that you mentioned? Did you not say 3 items?
I apologize. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The third item was the reserve fund. And let me look and see where that is.
And you also said that we spoke to Dr. Carter in passing, and she said that she could do a reduction in the medical. Who is the we, please?
I spoke to Dr. Carter.
You said we. I didn't know if there
Okay.
was.
It was a meeting that was with myself, Councilor Carey, Councilor Bagansky, and
Oh, that's right. No, not one of us minorities were invited to that meeting to find out any information. No. No. Thank you.
and then I believe the information should have been passed on from Dr. Carter to, I believe she said she was going to speak to Board Member Zimmerman, and he was going, this is what I was told, so. Because these are the numbers that Dr. Carter.
Please, do you have information to share?
These are the numbers that Dr. Carter provided where she could reduce from.
Could we get information from the Board of Ed? Zimmerman?
Amendment?
Yeah, Craig Zimmerman, 5 AM Auto Drive. I'm a member of the Board of Ed. First of all, I always try to do this out of respect for the superintendent and for the chair of the board. Normally, Board of Ed members don't speak for the board, but since my name was used, I appreciate a quick opportunity. I guess just 2 points. Since I wasn't invited to the meeting either, no Democrat was, my understanding is there was a general discussion, and based on a question, Dr. Carter gave a number of potential scenarios. Let's be very clear, the Board of Ed has not discussed those scenarios, number one. Number two, my understanding is Dr. Carter did not say that it was painless or it was recommended, but it was like, what if it was a possibility? So I don't think we need to oversell what was said, but I wasn't in the meeting, so I can't really say that, but I do believe Dr. Carter. But I guess since I'm here, until the microphone gets turned off, I do want to bring up, I'm a little bit confused, because when Board of Ed members saw this agenda item today, I know I made a phone call to Mr. King, and because we were surprised that there was going to be a discussion today, which would be the earliest discussion ever of the board budget, and we were told that this was just a discussion item today. That's the reason you did not see a room full of people. That's the reason you did not see the board chair here today. That's the reason you did not see the superintendent here today. That's the reason there's nobody here to officially answer any questions. So we don't have to have a counselor tell us what we should have in pensions or in healthcare. You would actually have somebody who could speak to the issue. I'm going to say I'm confused. Anybody who knows me know right now I'm pissed, because if that's not the case, if you guys are actually going to vote tonight, I'm shocked. Because we were told you weren't voting tonight. Even though the agenda item certainly made it appear that you could, and that's why we made phone calls. I attempted to call the deputy mayor. I understand, like a lot of people, he was busy. But I am more than surprised, and I guess I would just ask you, I don't think anything's going to change between now and this meeting, your next meeting, other than the fact that if you vote on the Board of Ed budget tonight, regardless of the number, if you cut the Board of Ed requested budget tonight, I don't know if it's appropriate, but there's going to be hell to pay from the town, because you will have done that pretty much. You can say you posted an agenda item, but we were told you weren't voting tonight. So you'll deal with that later. If you really want to do it with nobody here, be my guest. You don't need to do that. You have 6 votes. I don't think you're necessarily going to get 6 tonight, hopefully, but you have 6 votes. You can vote on this whenever you want, and you can get whatever you want. If you want to do it this way, be my guest.
Thank you. Believe I still have the floor. It was mentioned. And I would just like to point out that that's lack of transparency when the majority has a meeting with Dr. Carter, and not one Democrat was invited to that meeting, including from the Board of Education, nor from our side. And that's major lack of transparency. And you're coming back with numbers and telling me that Dr. Carter says those numbers are okay, or you're figuring out, she said we can cut it from here, cut it from there. She's not standing before us tonight accepting that recommendation. So moving forward with a vote such as this, without even having the Board of Ed here, as was stated, I think is totally inappropriate. I think it's a behind-the-scenes kind of sly move, and it's just shameful because you're not taking everything into consideration. And having the represented folks here that could speak on their behalf, which are the experts within their own budgets. So did you happen to find the third item that you had mentioned where you would like to cut?
Well, no. Let me be clear. We don't have any power to cut the Board of Ed. Our only power is to approve a dollar amount for the Board of Ed's budget. But what I was trying to say is there are places in this budget that can be reduced that do not affect the teachers, the programs, STEM, but we don't, and I know that we don't have any power to say what the Board of Ed cuts. It's up to them. We only have the power to approve a dollar amount.
But you based your dollar amount off of 3 items: medical, pension, and what was the third?
Reserve.
I'm sorry?
Reserve.
Reserve, and where is that?
That one I haven't found yet.
And where did you get the information on the dollar amount on that, and how much can be removed from that? We don't know that. We haven't heard that from Dr. Carter. We haven't heard that from the chair of the Board of Ed. So I don't know where you received that information at. It'd be great to know that.
I'll look and see if I can find it. Meanwhile,
okay.
Can I move for a 5-minute recess?
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor for a 5-minute recess? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Buganski? Counselor Lewis? Counselor Balboni? Counselor Carey?
Aye.
Mayor Delnicki?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Saracusa?
Yes.
Counselor King?
No.
Counselor Fitzgerald? No. Counselor Pendleton?
No, and I still believe I have the floor, so.
That's 6 yeses, 3 noes.
Counselor Pendleton, you'll get the floor back when we return. Okay. Calling the meeting back to order. Apologies for the interruption. Counselor Pendleton, please proceed.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to remove 13A, B, C, D, and E for the fact that we just received this information this evening, to postpone these items until our next meeting so we can gather more information, so we can find the reserve, which I just learned is not in this budget, and I don't know where you have a number from, or maybe it happened in that non-transparent meeting. So I'd really like to move to a motion to move 13A, B, C, D, and E to our next meeting, since we just received this information tonight. We have not heard from the Budget Working Group on their suggestions for the government budget. And all we heard this evening is bipartisan, bipartisan, bipartisan. I don't know, maybe 17 times. So there is no bipartisan here. There is no teamwork. There is no shared information. So I'd really like for everything to come forward and all the numbers to come forward, especially from our Budget Working Group, of which I have no knowledge of. I have no knowledge of, we haven't heard a report from where the cuts may take place. We've heard our departments present. The Budget Working Group has met. So I make a motion to postpone these until our next regular meeting so we can gather more information, and the Budget Working Group can present their suggestions, and we can gather more information and have the Board of Ed present here to address any questions that we may have.
Second. Point of order, Madam Mayor.
We have a motion. We have a second discussion. Counselor Lewis?
Yeah, there's already a motion and seconded on the table. We can't make a new motion when there's already one on the table that we were discussing.
Because we're still in discussion mode. That's correct.
Okay.
Would you like to
Call the vote?
No, it's for this. We're still in discussion. I haven't had time to comment.
Counselor King?
Thank you so much. So, for several reasons. One, this doesn't have to be approved until May 15th. Two, we have another town council meeting on May 5th where we may get more input one way or the other. Three, for 13A, B, C, D, and E, excuse me, A, B, C, D, we have blanks where numbers should be. In the past, with every town council that I've been a part of, we've had discussions about what these numbers would be, should be, and then they're presented to the council as a whole. I will admit that I am surprised, especially as a sitting member of the Budget Committee, that we just received this tonight. And so I would have liked to have seen during, and I should have spoke earlier, but that's okay, I make mistakes as well, which probably should have given this report during the committee portion to say what the committee was thinking, what our thoughts were, so on and so forth. And the fact that we didn't, that was an error. Again, we just received this tonight for our residents. That being said, there does not necessarily need to be a rush because, quite honestly, I was under the impression as well that we were going to be having a discussion about these numbers involving the town council, and then that would be talked about and voted on at our May 5th meeting, which still puts us way ahead of the curve in regards to the May 15th budget decision. That being said, excuse me, and I agree in regards to the bipartisan. I think we've done a very good job in having these discussions, whether I agree or disagree. However, to rush this particular piece, it doesn't make sense except to just rush this particular piece. I appreciate the Board of Ed speaking calmly and eloquently and saying that, you know, obviously other individuals would be here to answer any questions that we may have. Again, That's what we're here to do. That's what we're elected to do, as the deputy mayor eloquently says every time we have these types of discussions. We're here to listen, we're here to ask questions and get them answered. By that same token, again, I was also under the impression that we would be having a discussion about these items and not voting on them until the May 5th meeting. That being said, I agree with Councilor Pendleton. We could just move to postpone the question as we're doing this as part of the discussion until the May 5th meeting. It's not going to hurt anything. We have other things that we could be discussing, and then that way we all have an opportunity to digest and, dare I say, 'cause I was unaware of all these other meetings. I heard about them, but now that we've put them in writing, we definitely need to have a discussion and say, okay, meetings aside and whoever has been talking to who and all those other types of things, we as a town council were elected to know all of these pieces of information. And at this point, I think especially just seeing this for the first time that we're discussing, we just postpone the question until the next meeting, which is on May 5th. Thank you.
If I remember correctly, these were discussed during the budget working group, these particular numbers. And, correct, I believe I was there for some of those discussions.
For some of those discussions, you were there, correct. However, in regards to this, we're just getting this tonight.
Correct.
So the fact that the budget working group has discussed it, we've never discussed it as a town council, because usually, at least my understanding of any committee that is responsible to the town council, we're supposed to then come, as you did, with our thoughts and suggestions. Not to necessarily vote on them, but to have a discussion about it. And again, it's not due today. It's not due until May 15th. We haven't even gotten through April. So to push this vote to May 5th is not going to do any harm. And what it's going to allow people to do is actually take a look at this in a transparent way and say, okay, I have a question about X. I have a question about Y. I have a question about Z. Now that is something that we did not discuss. We never discussed, since I've been asked the question, the Board of Education key metrics. We never discussed elementary school classroom teacher-to-student ratio. We never discussed the overall student-to-teacher ratio from 2024-25 to 25-26. So just that alone, I'm like, all right, I'm part of the budget group, and we didn't discuss that. We did discuss numbers, correct, but we discussed numbers so that we can bring it back to the town council and have this level of a conversation, just for full transparency. Yes, I am part of the budget group, as well as Councilor Baganski, but in terms of this report, this is the first time that I'm seeing it.
Well, it's the first time you're seeing some of the pages, because you and Councilman Baganski did approve the town operating budget numbers that are in there. I sent them to you, and you guys came back with them.
What we approved, and as you very well know, I never approved to cut the town budget. I mean, the Board of Ed budget.
No.
Okay, let's just be clear on that.
No.
So, and I'm not trying, at the end of the day, we're trying to push something that doesn't need to be pushed. Right now, we're talking about a car in wheel drive, and anybody in New England knows you want to have a car in all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. And right now, we're pushing from the back, and it's not necessary.
Right.
We can wait on this until May 5th.
But the numbers have been out there. Correct. I mean, the numbers were proposed to be out there. Well, Councilor Pendleton, I know you can shake your head, but it was brought up many months ago.
But the full,
Correct.
right, but the full cut has
Reduction.
never been discussed
Reduction.
in terms of the full town
reduction.
council.
It's a reduction.
The reduction has never been discussed as a town council. Yes, it's been discussed, and yes, you've been a part of one or two of those meetings, but it's never been discussed as a town council, and that's what we're here to do.
And that's what we're doing.
However,
Okay.
we're just getting this information now, and I was told that we would not be voting on this so that we could have this discussion because it was not going to be due until May 15th. Had I known that we planned on voting on this, and I'm being very clear with my town councilors, I would not have said okay to this being on our agenda tonight. And I sure as heck would have said something when we adopted the agenda earlier. I would have asked for it to be removed. We could have had it for a discussion item, and then we could have voted on May 5th.
Councilor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm processing things as I'm listening. So you knew the number for him because and it's not an accusation, I'm just saying you were aware. And your other counselors over there, you didn't share it with them, so they were not aware.
No,
Just
let's,
so you
no,
know-
no, no, I got to stop you to be clear.
Okay.
No, I was not. And we still need to discuss it as a full town council.
I agree, I agree.
Okay.
And by the way, this is the first time I've seen this as well, okay? But what I'm imagining as the many meetings that have happened of which I have not been part of, but which I have asked questions about, the people who have been part of, our joint session with the Board of Ed, I'm suspecting nothing new is going to come out. Nothing new is going to come out. We're going to be asked to make some decisions based on the information we have. We know that in 2 weeks, the room will be packed. We know the same people are going to say the same things, and yet you feel that's necessary because the citizens have a right to be heard, but it's nothing new. We're going to hear the same verbiage we've heard 2 weeks ago. And I don't see as if that's efficient, if that makes sense, or if that's even wise. Can it wait 2 weeks? I don't, sure, maybe it can. I didn't know. I personally, I thought, I was surprised myself when I showed up. I thought all these things were on the agenda to vote on, and I even said to my team, what's with all the blanks? But it's on the agenda. I'm not part of the agenda setting group, so this is the agenda. We approved the agenda, it's on there. I don't know, too little, too late, maybe I'm too ignorant for that. But there was a motion made, it was seconded, and we're discussing it, and we need to dispense with that before we move on to something else. And it needs to be a group decision. But I don't think the characterizations of underhanded, back-dealing, untransparency is appropriate, because we've been at all these meetings, we've had these discussions, we were in the work session with the Board of Ed. All of us had chances to question and ask and take notes. This information is public information. If you want to know more details, Carolyn Carey has done something which has been lifting a lot of heavy weights of getting this information to us, and really she should be thanked for all she's been doing for our benefit, to save the town some money, to try and be efficient, to try and do her job well. It's not a matter of trying to be underhanded and do something backroomish, which has been the characterization been made. That's just not appropriate or right. Again, there's a motion on the table, and it was seconded.
If I may, Madam Mayor, respond to that? Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
So my characterization was just the fact that if conversations are happening outside of the town council meeting, then they need to be brought to the town council so that we can all make an educated decision. That's what we were elected to do. That's what we were asked to do. And I think from day one, even prior to the previous election, it was run on being transparent. We've been saying that, you've been saying that since day one. I don't disagree at all. We now understand that some things were not. I'm not saying backhand, I don't think anybody had any evil intent. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I am suggesting is that there is no need to rush this. Now we have more information to make an educated decision, even myself included. Again, that's all I'm saying. Wait till May 5th, okey-doke. We have it, whether it's gonna be the same or not, that's cool, but you also made my point for me. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 blanks where we should have numbers. And we usually discuss all of that and put those numbers in and make the decision. And that's why, again, I'm saying I agree with just wait until May 5th. We have new information, and with new information, you make new decisions. That's all I'm saying. It's not gonna hurt what we're elected to do.
One thing, we have a number now. That's all we're A. We have a number now. That's it. We're not talking about B, C, D, and E.
We do have A. However, we just received A as a town council. I will repeat again, even as I am a member of the budget committee, I was not aware of this until this morning. How can we vote on something that I was just made aware of and I'm on the committee? So, I'm not trying to be evil or malicious. We have discussed these numbers between myself, Councilor Carey, Councilor Boganski. We've had a very good conversation, agree, disagree. All I'm saying is now that we have more information, and again, I was also under the impression, the clear impression, that we were having a discussion about these items with the intent. Now, there was an intent to vote on May 5th. Now, that was the intent.
Thank you, ma'am.
Counselor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is my second time participating in the budget process. I seem to recall pretty vividly from last year that on the day when we actually voted on the budget, we all had these numbers at least one meeting beforehand. We had talked about the numbers because the budget working group had presented their recommendations to the full council so that we could talk about it. As my fellow counselor just said, yes, we now have this number, but we've had this number for like 5 minutes. I mean, we haven't had time to discuss it. We haven't had, time to digest it, think about it. We relied on the information from our, colleague here that, yes, this was on the agenda for tonight, but that the deal was that it was on here so that people from the town could come, they could discuss it, because it would be an item on the agenda. The working group would present their numbers and their recommendations to us. We would have a discussion, but we would not be voting on this tonight. We would be voting on it at the May 5th meeting. So, had I known that we were actually going to be voting on this, I wouldn't have consented to making a motion that we vote on it. And, I don't, the town attorney isn't here. I don't know if it's within the rules, but if it's within the rules, I would withdraw my motion. So I would withdraw my motion that we vote on this tonight. I don't think we should be voting on it tonight. Yes, I withdraw my motion.
Mr. Maniscalco, how does that work? Do you know?
Could I ask a question?
Oh, Councilor Pendleton. Sure.
Seeing that we received this information this evening, knowing that the Board of Education budget is an accepted budget by the Board of Education, you keep referring to Dr. Carter. Dr. Carter presented to the Board of Education, and it then became their budget. Has this numbers been presented to the chair or even the Board of Education for them to discuss? Do they know anything about this?
So,
Councilor Carey?
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. What you have in front of you, I just put it in PowerPoint because I thought it'd be easier to see, was, what the town, what the budget group put together for the town operating budget, and some thoughts around, the budget committee. And then I also put the Board of Ed budget in there. I agree that Councilman King did not agree with Counselor Baginski and I on the Board of Ed budget, and I actually do say that in here, you know. And I only put some numbers in here somewhat because we got a lot of feedback from the public. And so it's, the metrics in here, I was just trying to address the concerns of the
My
public.
question is, does the
So
chair?
this was a discussion item for us, for the town council. That this was the purpose
So
of
this
this.
is a discussion
was
item
a
this evening.
discussion item.
So it shouldn't be in a motion format yet because we just received it and have a discussion item on it. But again, does the Board of Education chair or the Board of Education, have they seen this document? Do they know these number changes? Do they, anything? Have you caucused with your own people from the Board of Ed to present these numbers to them?
I think a lot of people know them. Daria Plummer threw the numbers out tonight when she came out to speak. I mean,
That is not
we're
my
pretty
question.
public.
That is not my question. My question is, does the Board of Ed chair and the Board of Ed know these numbers that you're presenting for the first time to us? Have you caucused with your Board of Ed folks to present these numbers to them for them to say, oh, that's okay, let us go back and meet with the Board of Ed and maybe we'll adjust our budget, or you can, we're gonna stick with our budget and you can move forward with what you want to move forward with and reduce our budget. So I think that's my question.
The Board of Ed chair and the vice chair know of a, not the 1.3, but they know about a 1.17.
And they're not here for us to ask them. That's my point. We can't ask them how they feel about this. This is their budget that they would be working with. So to get feedback from them would be wonderful. Mr. Maniscalco goes back.
So I did talk to the town attorney, and essentially, Councilor Fitzgerald, you could withdraw your motion. That being said, somebody else on the council could then make that motion after you. And I did ask, even though the motions are assigned on the agenda to specific individuals, he said that even despite that, so.
So the motion is withdrawn.
Yes.
Do we need a second on that or anything like that? Or
I
just the
don't-
motion is withdrawn
She can
and,
just withdraw her motion. If somebody else on the council wanted to make that motion, they can jump in and make that motion.
Point of order. I believe you have to have the consent of the seconder as well.
Thank you for that point of order. Yes, I consent to that. Thank you for that point of order.
and you were you seconded.
I second the withdrawal. Thank you for that.
Okay. So
I'd like to make a motion to remove 13A, B, C, D, and E from the agenda and move them on to the May 5th meeting after our intensive discussion this evening. And at the May 5th meeting, we can have folks here that can answer some of our questions for us.
do we have a second?
And also on the information that we just received this evening and try to gather.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Councilor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'm sorry, I just really want to push this. Anything that's done in haste, we've all made mistakes at certain points in time with certain votes. These votes are too important to rush. And especially when it comes down to other discussions that we need to have. For example, and I know to Councilor Lewis's point earlier, we are only talking about A, but now there's a motion that's been made for A, B, C, D, and E. We haven't talked about raising the town council budget. That's a discussion for all of us to have before we vote. And we can have that discussion once we look through this, because and I will agree with you, Councilor Lewis. Yeah, Councilor Carey did some heavy lifting. And she put the numbers together and she did discuss it, certain portions of this, definitely with myself and Councilor Baginski. But again, and that's not here nor there, all I'm saying is that we haven't had the full council discussion on these numbers. And because all it is a committee at best. At best, all this is, and it's not a setup, Councilor It's not a setup. I was again told. The intent was to have the discussion, not the vote. It's not going to hurt us to push this till May 5th. And anybody that's looking is going to say, yeah, okay, why not just have it on May 5th? Now you got all the numbers. Why not May 5th? Now that looks like there's something else going on. But when we have the time to do it, then I suggest we just wait on the time to do it.
Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of moving the 13A through 13E to the May 5th meeting, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Roll call, please.
Counselor Bugiansky. Counselor Lewis. Counselor Balboni. Counselor Carey.
Aye.
Mayor Delnicki.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
Abstain.
Counselor King. Counselor Fitzgerald. Counselor Pendleton.
Absolutely aye.
Okay, so we have 7 yeses, 1 no, and 1 abstention.
Okay. Motion to move.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So we're going to our discussion now.
Excuse.
Are we going to the discussion now? But,
No, we're moving on to item,
wait a minute, I don't understand anything.
just made a motion to move 13A to 13E to the May 5th meeting. And we had a discussion, and we just had the vote.
But we didn't discuss any of the things that we were going to discuss and that are on this document. I don't,
We'll do that at the May 5th meeting.
you know what, no, here, wait, hold on, guys. We can't do it at the May 5th meeting because in order to have the numbers at the May 5th meeting, we've got to agree on this town operating budget. Because if the town operating budget numbers are things that you don't agree with, then that will affect all the other numbers downstream. The whole purpose of tonight, I thought,
But
was
we
to
already had the discussion, and the vote has already taken, so we have to move on to the next item.
You were a yes if you wanted to call vote.
Well, you know what? Communications from the council. I'm going to bring it up. Sorry.
Yeah, I know, I'm just. Moving on to item 14, passage of ordinance, having none. Item 15, public input for any matter. Public input for any other matter over which the council has jurisdiction shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor, the speaker shall approach the lectern, give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speakers may address the council on any item over which the council has jurisdiction. The speaker shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to come forward at this time to speak on any? There you go.
Good evening. I'm Devashri Kurhekar, and I live in 38 Austin Circle. Respected dignitaries, honored guests, esteemed teachers, and dear community members, a warm evening to everyone present here today. It is a great privilege to stand before you as we celebrate a tradition deeply rooted in our culture, Guru Vandana, a day dedicated to honoring our gurus, our teachers, who guide, inspire, and illuminate our path. We also take a moment to recognize a very special day in our own community, May 4th from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. We will proudly celebrate as Teachers Appreciation Day at Pleasant Valley Elementary School in South Windsor. It is a day to acknowledge the dedication, passion, and profound influence of our teachers and educators, not just as professionals, but as mentors and change makers. Today we came here to give information about the event, to invite all town councils to attend this very important event honoring our teachers. In the past years, this event was attended by Dr. Carter, the superintendent of South Windsor Public Schools, State Senator Saud Anwar, State Representative Tom Delnicki, and principals of elementary, middle, and high schools, along with 60-plus teachers. In Indian tradition, the word guru means the remover of darkness. A teacher, therefore, is someone who helps us move from ignorance to knowledge, from confusion to clarity. This is not just a cultural sentiment, it is timeless truth that resonates across generations and geographies. We also honor Guru Ved Vyasa, the sage who not only composed the Mahabharata, but organized the sacred Vedas, Rig Ved, Yajur Ved, Sam Ved, and Atharva Ved, to preserve and share divine knowledge. His contribution laid the foundation for structured learning and spiritual inquiry, a legacy that lives on through every teacher today. As Henry Brooks Adams once said, "A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops." This quote beautifully captures the long-lasting and often unseen ripple effect of a teacher's work. Teachers are not just givers of information, they are builders of life. Their lessons go beyond textbooks. They teach us how to think, how to feel, and how to rise after failure. Alexander the Great expressed this sentiment when he said, "I'm in debt to my father for living, but to my teachers for living well." And let us not forget the sacrifice behind their service. A quote that touches our hearts reminds us, a good teacher is like a candle. It consumes itself to light the way for others. So today, as we celebrate Guru Vandana and Teachers Appreciation Day, let us go beyond ceremony. Let us truly honor our teachers with our words, our actions, and our continued support for education and mentorship. To all the teachers of Pleasant Valley, Orchard Hill, PRS Elementary School, Timothy Edwards Middle School, and South Windsor High School, and beyond, we thank you. You are the guiding stars and patient mentors and quiet heroes behind every success story. Happy Guru Vandana and Teachers Appreciation Day. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you spell your name for the record, please? Because I couldn't really hear it.
D-E-V-A.
And your last name?
No, I'm not with D-E-V-A-S-H-R and 2 E's.
Okay.
My last name?
And your first name?
My first name was David Shri.
Okay.
That way. And my last name is K-U-R-H-E-K-A-R. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else like to come forward at this time for item 15, public input?
Despina Bagansky, 133 Cliffwood Drive. I struggled with if I wanted to say anything, but after the theatrics tonight, I definitely feel like I have to say something. If everyone listened earlier tonight, Senator Anwar, what was the #1 complaint he said he's hearing from residents in this town? Not our personal agenda, but what is the #1 complaint? The cost of living. And that does not surprise to me because what was the first most heated topic? Our electric bills. So I know that hearing from different Board of Ed members, and as you all know, I love to attend these meetings, when you add in not just $100 cost, but you add in the cost of living, electric bills, property taxes going up, childcare costs coming up, everything going up, how do we get surprised when residents start looking more closely at the town and school budgets? Why is this scrutiny met with the defensiveness instead of dialogue? We need to be honest with ourselves. When people start digging into where the tax dollars are going, it's not because they don't value education or public services. It's because they're trying to understand how every item contributes to the bottom line. That's their household budget. Counselors must remain open to new ideas, even when those ideas challenge the status quo. You represent an entire community. Not letting your personal beliefs or political leanings being laser focused on individual agendas only drives a wedge between the leadership in this town. Residents are asking questions, not picking sides. Let's stop being surprised by accountability and start being responsible about it. Thank you.
else would like to come forward at this time for items not on the agenda or for any matter? Okay, seeing none, moving on to item 16, communications from the council. Councilor Pendleton?
Yes, we have a notification. It's also out there on Facebook. Saturday, April 26, 2025, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., the South Windsor Veterans Fair will be taking place at the Charles E. Enos Community Center at 150 Nevers Road, South Windsor. It's a free event. Come and see what benefits are available for our veterans. The South Windsor Human Services, Greater Hartford Harm Reduction, American Legion Post, the auxiliary will be there, VFW Post, representatives from the Soldiers and Sailors and Marine Funds, the Hartford Vet Center, National Department of Veterans Affairs will be there, the American Legion Department service officers will be there. So to help start a claim for any veterans within our community. So please come and join other fellow veterans, and women veterans, Saturday, April 26th, 10 to 1. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. First, I want to thank the two gentlemen in the crowd that are involved with the STEM. I will say my two daughters that are in elementary school, I typically get the normal kid response, how was school? Good, nothing beyond that, but anytime they do expand upon that, it typically is STEM related, something they did in their STEM class. I want to give credit to their regular teachers. They are amazing and they tell us plenty of stories about them too, but specific learning seems to always be tied to the STEM program. I know PRS has a great one, and I hope that regardless of what budget gets passed eventually, that the Board of Ed will keep an extreme focus on making sure the STEM program is maintained, which I imagine it would be. I also want to just reflect back on a time where I was the only Republican sitting on this council, and I begged and pleaded along with an unaffiliated member of the council for the mayor at the time to wait and not force through an issue that I thought would be very important. So although that certain individual tonight tried to paint that it would be horrible to do something like that, I do remember, and it's all on video, you can go back and look at public meetings, the desk was slammed, we are the majority and we're voting on this tonight. So I myself have shown to be extremely bipartisan. Just last meeting, voted against my compadres to the left, didn't get any threats from them. They would all do anything for me at the drop of a dime, I know that. So I do agree, we do need to work together. I don't necessarily believe tonight was the greatest meeting in the world, but hopefully we circle back next meeting and we figure out what we want to do together. And I keep saying this, I feel like the last few years, I wish accusations and this and secret meeting, like, I just wish those conversations just wouldn't even be thrown out there, because I know, again, everybody up here to be great people, and I hope that people here tonight or listening don't really take a whole lot of weight into that and focus more on the issues themselves, the line items themselves, the points that have been made, and we can just move on and keep this town great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Carey.
Okay, I would like to go over the document that I prepared, and the reason I want to go over it is because some of these numbers I put in as much to address public comment as anything else. So I don't want you to think there's secret numbers, okay? People said things about teacher ratios, so I did some digging to get some numbers. So these are numbers I put together. They are not Board of Ed numbers. They're just taken from their budget, and the math was done. So South Windsor Town Council, can we put the South Windsor Town Council Budget Working Group is composed of Councilor Boganski, Councilor King, and myself. The purpose is to go line by line through the town budget, asking questions and understanding the line item request, conduct a review of the Board of Ed budget. The working group, as of last week, and unanimously agreed on the recommendations they are presented to the town council on the town operating budget. The working group does not fully agree on the recommendations of the Board of Ed budget. Okay. So, the South Windsor Town, oh, sorry. Kath, I can't get it to go. Let me see. Thanks. Oh, okay. So one more, please. So, all of you know that, one more, Kath.
One more.
Okay. All of you know that we asked the town to stay fairly flat this year. And last year, the town did stay pretty flat. They came in at 0.9%. This year, they came in pretty close to flat as well. However, all of us sat and listened to the various budget presentations, and all of you spoke up about things that concerned you. And so as we went through the budget working group, one of the things we realized is that when it comes to the town, maybe we need to add some things back in. And these are not, I don't want anybody to think these were my personal ideas. These came from you, all of you, because as the public spoke, as you spoke, we tried to take note of it. I mean, so for example, and Councilor Pendleton, you're one of the people I know was an advocate of this, we're recommending an addition of 1 police officer with benefits, as well as the officer training equipment and uniforms. That is not a salary, that's a rough benefit. And because benefits differ between somebody who is single, someone who has a whole family, this is kind of like in the middle. So, you know what we had to put something in the budget. We don't know who we're going to hire. So anyway, that's a recommendation. I personally strongly support it. I know that we have not added to the police staff since 2019. We all know that we have adult facilities where our police are the first responders, and they're hurting. They're really stretched. So, you know, they would love to have 2. We had some conversations about this, but you know, we're also trying to be responsible to our residents. So we put in 1. I think maybe we should plan, as the chief asked, that once a year over the next couple of years, we give them 1, and then we'll get them to where they need to be. But this is the recommendation for this year for your consideration. When the Parks Department came and spoke to us, they told us that they got rid of 3 part-time employees who did mowing and gardening. That I had this number wrong, which is why I had to give you a new number, Councilman King and Councilor Bansky. It was 42,280. Again, these are part-time individuals. They don't have benefits. We're not going to have any less grass this year than last year. And we use that for all of our fields, for all the different events. So we're recommending that we put this money back in. Right? Again, you know, this is for you to say something about. Human Services grants were reduced in order for their budget to stay as flat as possible. So we give grants. I'll give one example. In past years, we gave a $5,000 grant to the Center for Abused Women and Children. It was cut back to $2,000 to try and keep the budget flat. In this time, and they accept our residents. We don't have this ourselves, did they? So at this time where we know the federal government is cutting back on these types of things, as a budget committee, it didn't make sense to us to cut that back. And so, you know, we are recommending that we restore the grants to prior years. Library improved digital via Overdrive, excuse me. I know I assume all of you got a letter from a resident complaining about digital. I've also gotten stopped in a couple stores. I'm beginning to think I'm getting recognizable by people who ask me what we're going to do about the library. And their complaint is that, you know, the library and digital is important to them, and that they have to wait in lines. So I had a conversation with the director of the library at Marietter's naming. And Councilor Fitzgerald was there, but so he didn't get back to me till later in the day. But we sat and talked a little bit about what we could do. What he told me was hoopla, it's very expensive, and that, that expense just keeps going up. But that if we could get him about $7,500, I mean, I think he would like more, but, this is about what we can do. $7,500 for overdrive. He could, bring those lists, make them tighter, and once we acquire that material on overdrive, we get to keep it. And so ultimately, it wouldn't be a year-over-year expense. So recommendation would be to add $7,500. There are a lot of people that use our library. A lot of the people using our library are not the same people using our schools. So the recommendation was to add that. You all heard about the permits and the increase in permits and, the importance of permits and the idea of using a part-time seasonal person. So we did put that in here as a recommendation. We have a lot of building that may take place this year. We hope it does, because that will improve our, our grand list and stuff, but that will also require permits to get reviewed quickly. So we did add that back in. And then lastly, Mr. Maniscalco shared about the relocation contingency. I don't know exactly what to call this sometimes, up for $142,000. He spoke about it last meeting, he spoke about it tonight, so we put that in. What that does is it brings the total town budget to $41,365,577. The increase over 24-25 is, 1.2 million, which is a 3% increase. 24-25, it was 0.9. I think the town manager did a good job getting his departments to come in fairly flat. I mean, those budgets were tight, we all know it, and we know that everybody was like kind of bleeding in order to get there. You know that I am fiscally tight, but I think that we have to do the right thing by the town, and there's certain things that, safety is important, other things. So when I look over the last 2 years and put those 2 years together, the town budget only goes up by 3.95. I'd say that's pretty good. So this is what I wanted, and just not to vote on tonight, but I wanted you to understand it. This was not a done deal. This was for discussion. And then
Excuse me, before we move on, could I ask a question about the operating budget?
Sure.
Mr. Maniscalco, could you explain the salary relocation for the contingency request by the town manager? I know what you're talking about with the contingency and getting it from CIP, correct? And then, but the salary relocation, what is that?
I'm not sure, I think there was a confusion in terms, it's salary contingency. So we typically carry a salary contingency for certain items, like contracts that are negotiated outside of terms and stuff like that. So we asked for some additional funds to account for the upcoming retirements of a number of our police officers due to the contract terms that are associated with payouts when officers do retire. Typically what we had done in the past is there had been enough room to be able to accommodate some of those retirements, but due to the volume of retirements plus how tight those budgets are, we're asking for some additional funds to be put in salary contingency to be able to offset that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So then we look at the Board of Ed budget. Okay. 24-25, Board of Ed budget was 94 million and change. In 25-26, the Board of Ed proposed 100,230,000 and change budget. That is a year-over-year increase of 5.6 million and change, which is a 5.9% increase. Our proposal, and this was not in agreement, Councilman King did not agree with Councilor Baganski and I on this, is that we approve a 98,880,000 and change Board of Ed budget. This is a 4.299 and change increase, or 4.55%. When we look at the 2-year increase in the Board of Ed budget, using the Board of Ed proposed, we're looking at a $12 million increase, which represents 13.6% increase over 2 years. When we look at what the partial working group proposed, we're looking at it at 10.658 and change 2-year increase, which is still 12.08%. Now, our school is growing, and I personally moved here 23 years ago. Actually, I signed my agreement of sale right around this time of year because of the schools here. Okay, I was coming from Pennsylvania. I really didn't understand Connecticut. Came here for the schools. Schools were not as good as they are today, but they were good. They are better thanks to the Board of Ed, to the teachers, to the administrators, to Dr. Carter and her whole team. Everybody has done a great job. When we had the working group meeting, I pointed out we are an A to A+ rated school district according to Niche and a number of other rating agencies out there. And I gave a lot of numbers at our working group meeting, but it's not here. I'm just going to give you some background. I gave a lot of numbers when we had our group meeting, right? Share meeting with the Board of Ed and working group. Our forecasted student enrollment increase over 2 years is 236 students. That's actual this year and then forecasted for next year. So that increase is a 4.83% increase over 2 years, okay? So I took a look at our student enrollment. I just took budget, pure budget divided by our enrollment numbers. And all the numbers came out of the budget book. Whatever they said their enrollment was or forecasted it, I just was dividing, okay? For the 23-24 year, we're about 18,000 per student. For the 24-25 year, we're about 18,969 per student. For the 25-26 year, if we use the working group's proposed budget, we are at $19,286 per student. Now, these don't take out all the things that that DRG number takes out. Okay, this is just taking the budget and dividing by the student population. It's just straight. But what you see is that over this 2-year period, it's a 6.92% increase in the per student cost, which is good. I'm not saying it's bad, but this is what the working group proposal is. So I guess what my message to all of you and to the town is that, do we need a good school? Absolutely. I totally believe in STEM. I went back to school and graduated in 2019 with a master's in STEM, in data analytics, okay? I really believe that, actually think STEM is critical. We probably need less psychology majors and more STEM. But, you know, that we need good schools and they're of value to our real estate, to our children, and it is the cheapest investment we can make in our country. By the same token, I don't believe that we should do it at any cost. I think that we have to take into consideration that people are pressured. And unfortunately, because of some of the changes that were made in this state legislature this year, you know, we really got hammered on the growth in our grant list. And so this isn't the year for this to happen. And so this is not a reduction. This is an increase. It's a 4.55% increase. It is a 12.08% increase over 2 years. And it increases your per student cost by 6.92%. So that's the recommendation. And the numbers were from me. You know, I told you how I did it. There's nothing magic. Board of Ed, some key metrics. People were so upset when they spoke to us about student-teacher ratios, okay? That I used the numbers in this book and in last year's book. And I calculated the elementary school classroom teacher to student ratio and it's 21.4 average, okay, across those elementary schools. It's 21.3 using the 25, 26 numbers. 0.3, so it's 0.3 to 0.4. We're not looking at 25, 26, 27, 28 students in these elementary schools. This is the numbers from the books. Overall student to teacher ratio, you know, I looked at niche, and it was interesting because they show us as having 12 to 1, but I don't know how old that is. Some really good schools are 11 to 1, okay? Well, with this, we're at 10.5 to 1, according to the numbers in the books compared to the students. Okay, so we are not talking about doing anything but maintaining and probably a little bit more, because if you look at the 6% increase in the cost we're paying per student, and that's a good thing. Now, are we going up here? No, we're not. But you know what? This is not the year to do that. We're still going up. We're still improving the schools. So that was my presentation, guys. So the impact of decision on town residents, and this is making a lot of assumptions, so these are really approximate. I tried to write that word everywhere.
Carolyn, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, can I just ask a quick question on,
Yeah.
on the Board of Ed slide? I'm looking at page 3 in the budget book, which is the enrollment, projected in the actual enrollments. And so I'm a little confused because like I'm looking at 2023 and you have down 4,891 students, but in the Board of Ed's budget book, it says 5,002.
I know where you're getting, but I want to go to where I got my numbers from, which were these. No, I got my numbers from these pages, from
Page 10.
page 10.
10?
So on page 10, projected 25, 26 total enrollment, they're saying 5127. It's the last grid on the bottom.
Okay, well maybe, all right.
So I used page 10, and then for 23, 24, I used last year's budget book. I have that with me too, for about page 10 though as well.
Okay. All right, thanks.
I don't know.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
ask.
I didn't look there because I was trying to stay with, you know.
Yeah, yeah. All right, I'll ask the Board of Ed about it because
Okay.
the numbers don't match up
Okay.
to what's on page 3.
And I know the Board of Ed has a number that excludes certain charges and costs and includes others that they give all the time about how we rate for other DRGs, you know, this number was just a straight, this is the budget, this is the students, divide one into the other.
Yeah, okay, yeah, because on this page, the numbers are higher than on that other page.
That's interesting.
On page 3, yeah. And on these, if you look at the numbers on page 3, the increase in students is actually 247 over 2 years, not 236.
Yeah, well, I know that last year they expected like 121 students, they got 100, like they were 20 students less than forecasted for last year, for this current year.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but I did try and use their numbers.
Okay.
Anyway, on the last page, so what's the impact of the decision on town residents? If we use the working group proposed budget, the tax increase is approximately, and there's some moving numbers with that capital and stuff, so that's why it's really approximate, 3.34%. So a home assessed at $350,000 would see their taxes increase to $12,464, which is an increase of about $403 for the year, which is approximately $35.59 a month. Okay. Using the proposed BOE budget and the proposed working group town budget, tax increase is 4.47%. Same home would be $12,600, an increase of approximately $539 for the year, approximately $44.92 and $93. I know these numbers don't look huge, But you know what? Everything is cumulative. And I think overall, if we can try and keep our taxpayers' numbers as tight as possible when they're being hammered by so many things, I think it's a good thing. I don't think the vast majority of our residents are getting over a 3 or 3.5% raise. I bet a lot of them are getting 2.5. So that was the presentation. And again, it was meant to be a discussion item. I apologize, maybe I should have done it under committees, you know, but I was just trying to get something in front of you because it's easier than just talking. All right, thank you.
Counselor Pendleton.
Thank you for presenting this to us this evening. Thank you to the budget working group to put back in the items that were brought up, the police department and the part-time folks there. I really appreciate that. I truly do. I think my question with going to the Board of Ed budget is, you're saying you took the number and you divided it by the students, the grand number, and you divided it by the students, but then you had mentioned that some items were removed.
No, I said that they use a number.
Well, let me finish, please.
Oh, sorry.
Can I finish? So, should the pension be removed? Should the medical be removed? Should those teacher-directed specific items be removed from the budget? And then look at the budget number then and just include the students? I mean, shouldn't some things come out of the budget? I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Where you're getting $18,000 when it's $16,000? Because I think the Board of Ed removes some items that aren't student-specific, but teacher-specific. And then also, are you counting in the monies from the state? I don't know how you're...
No, I wasn't counting any of that. I wasn't trying to redo anything. All I was trying to do is show, again, because of a lot of this is to address the public. Public is very concerned. Is our education going to go down? I tried to look at how much are we spending, how many students do we have, and so net, what is that worth? In order to show you that, you know what we're spending per student isn't dropping anywhere.
Is it what?
Actually, isn't dropping. It's actually going up. And, you know, it's just, it's just a pure number. It's not meant to.
So you haven't removed anything from those numbers that aren't student-specific?
No. Now, the number that you see all the time from the Board of Ed where they compare us to other towns, they have all kinds of rules on what's in and what's out of those numbers. And I don't know those rules, so I didn't try and
So shouldn't we go by what
them.
they're saying because they know what the rules are, what should be in, what should be out? Instead of what you're doing is taking the whole number and dividing it by the amount of students?
Again, all I was trying to show was trying to demonstrate that on a per-student basis, we're still increasing. And that's all. So that residents not feel concerned that their education was going down. I wanted to just show them that. That's all. Wasn't trying to compare to the Board of Ed numbers. I know their numbers are different, but I wanted, because it's just a different ratio thing. I just wanted to do a straight math for people. That's all.
But that's inaccurate math if you're not including it with removing. Could we please have Dr. Carter at our next meeting so we can get some questions on the budget that was presented, if that would be good? And the Board of Education here, please. So if we have any questions, just so we can get accurate numbers, because especially with these two, you may have the information more about the enrollment sooner than next meeting.
As I said, the enrollment numbers came out of their budget book. If I got, I could show you, I showed you the page.
Yeah, it's just they've got 2 different pages in their book with 2 different numbers, so we need to know which numbers are the accurate ones.
Talking about non-transparent.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I just, as we're talking about the money, I figured as the chair of capital projects, it's probably helpful for folks to know kind of what our outlook is looking like. Mr. Roberts, is it fair to say our capital needs is pretty close to 95 to 100 million? Yeah. So when we're talking about like the beauty of our town and the buildings that we love and the parking lots and that all goes under capital projects. So they're getting what, 3 point something million this year in the budget when, you know, 100 million would completely restore in just one year all the needs that we've had for the next 30 years, but also things that we've been putting off, in some cases, stories I've heard 25, 30 years. So that's just another piece of information that I think other folks should hear. You know, we also have this really, really big need in town of darn near close to $100 million of things that need to get done. Again, that's our buildings, our roofs, our public parking lots. There's culverts that need to be replaced, like the things you don't think about that are important to the infrastructure of our town. That's a massive number too. So again, I don't have the skill set that Councilor Carey and some other folks have to look that deep into that. So I do appreciate the working group and what you guys have done, but I also do appreciate what Councilor King says all the time. You know, we've put a group together. We should trust their work and accept it, have a discussion, sure, but not try to do the work again for them. So I do appreciate what you guys have done, but I figured I'd put that number out there to folks because it's a pretty big deal as well, and our schools are included. So the Board of Ed has a section of capital projects in there. So it's everything. It's Parks and Rec, it's the town, it's Board of Ed, it's all the town departments have the fire department, police department. Everybody has a really big need. So again, full transparency. I don't know if it's because I have kids in school. I probably would have passed the full ask, but I do also think it's important to ask hard questions and look deeply. And I think the reaction to think, you know, the schools are gonna shut down and this and that over a minuscule percentage of a reduction in a budget is, I get it. People are passionate. Mrs. Plummer is great. I love what she does and I love her passion, but I do think people need to realize that it is our job to look into things, and that doesn't necessarily mean looking into things means we're going to change things. That's what our job. So we shouldn't just be up here blindly passing things that are given to us. We should be asking questions because it's either going to confirm a yes or confirm a no, and we're all different. So I think that's the beauty of this world.
Councilor Lewis, you have your light on? All set? Okay. No more communications? Okay. Item 17, executive session. Deputy Mayor Siracusa.
I move that we go into executive session to discuss item 17A, purchase of development rights, open space at 379 Scantic Road and 2048 John Fitch Boulevard. I'd like to invite Town Manager, Mr. Michael Maniscalco, and Assistant Town Manager, Mr. Scott Roberts.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. And we will not be returning to this room. We will be adjourning the meeting during our executive session. So everyone, good night.